The air in Konoha was charged with tension the night Naruto Uzumaki was born. The normally quiet Hidden Leaf village was shrouded in an eerie silence, broken only by the whispers of fear and the soft cries of the newborn child. Even in his first moments, Naruto's existence seemed destined to disturb the peace of his surroundings. As the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, held his son for the first time, he sensed something he couldn't explain: an immense, pulsing energy flowing through the child, both foreign and ancient. Minato and Kushina were no strangers to power. They understood the nine tails, Kurama, had been sealed within Kushina since her youth, and they had been prepared for the possibility that their child would bear some of that same burden. But this was something different. The aura surrounding Naruto wasn't Kurama's. It felt much older, darker, as though it resonated from the depths of an ancient, primordial force. It was as if the very earth trembled in the presence of this newborn. As the hours passed, the Hokage and village elders gathered to examine Naruto. Each of them, battle-hardened shinobi with decades of experience, felt a pang of fear in their hearts as they stood in the presence of this infant. No one spoke of it openly, but they all knew that this was no ordinary chakra. They had heard rumors, myths of the Ten Tails, an ancient creature whose power was beyond anything the world had ever known. Could it be possible that Naruto was somehow connected to that creature? Their suspicions were confirmed when Naruto's chakra spiked, an unprovoked surge that sent a wave of energy through the room, shaking the walls and flickering the lights. The elders exchanged fearful glances. The sealing process would have to begin immediately. They crafted a seal stronger and more complex than any before, one that required both Minato's and Kushina's life forces to contain Naruto's power. With every layer added, the child's aura dimmed slightly, until, finally, it felt as though they had buried the vast, terrifying energy beneath a mountain of chains. But in the weeks that followed, the fear didn't subside. Word spread quickly, reaching every corner of the village. The whispers of the Ten Tails chakra grew, and soon, Naruto became a figure of dread. Many saw him as a ticking time bomb, a harbinger of doom waiting to explode. As Naruto grew, the shadows of fear and suspicion followed him everywhere he went. He was constantly watched, his every movement observed by masked Umbu operatives, each one carrying orders to stop him should he ever exhibit signs of that overwhelming power. The village treated him not as a child, but as a weapon, a curse that could not be undone. His earliest memories were shrouded in confusion and loneliness. Whenever he tried to play with other children, they would run away, their parents pulling them back with hurried glances, shielding them from his touch as though he carried a deadly plague. Some children sneered and called him a monster, while others avoided him altogether, their faces etched with fear they couldn't understand but had inherited from their parents. Why do they hate me? Naruto often asked himself, his young heart aching with a pain he couldn't articulate. Yet, there was no answer. No matter how many times he tried to reach out, to understand, he was met with rejection. The adults in the village would glance at him warily, whispering among themselves, keeping a safe distance, as though his very presence was toxic. The only warmth Naruto felt was from the rare moments he was left alone, when he could sit under the open sky and let the sun wash over him, filling the empty spaces in his heart, even if only briefly. But soon, even those moments became overshadowed by a gnawing sense of something lurking within him, a presence that whispered to him in dreams and filled him with a power he couldn't comprehend. At night, he would wake up drenched in sweat, haunted by visions of eyes as deep as the void, looking back at him from a darkness that seemed to stretch on forever. The whispers grew louder each night, telling him things he didn't want to hear. You are more than they could ever imagine. They fear you because they know what you are. You don't belong to this world, you belong to something much greater. At first, Naruto tried to ignore it, brushing off the voices as nightmares. But as time went on, he found himself drawn to them, enticed by the promise of power. In his solitude, those whispers became his only companions, voices that didn't look at him with fear but rather with admiration, as though they could see something in him that no one else could. It was as if the energy sealed within him, that ancient chakra, was calling out, begging to be unleashed. By the time Naruto entered the academy, he had come to terms with his role as the village outcast. He no longer sought the approval of others, instead finding solace in his own defiance. If the villagers saw him as a monster, then so be it. The kindness he once tried to show was replaced by a brash demeanor, a mask that hid his hurt but also fueled his growing resolve. He would prove them all wrong. But beneath the mask, his resentment simmered. The idea that he was something more, something that could rise above the humans who caged him, began to take root. It was a quiet, festering thought, one that began to color his view of the world. The whispers continued to echo in his mind, reminding him of what he truly was, a god among men, bound and limited by those too weak to understand him. On his worst days, he would retreat to the edge of the village, finding a place far from prying eyes, where he could unleash small bursts of his chakra, testing the limits of his power. At first, they were just flickers, sparks that fizzled out almost immediately. But as he grew older, he found himself able to create explosions, rip through trees, and leave scorch marks on the ground. Each time, he felt the rush of that ancient energy, like molten fire coursing through his veins, a brief taste of the godlike power locked away within him. One day, in the quiet of a secluded training ground, he lost control. The power surged unexpectedly, a torrent of energy that left the crater in the earth and a storm of destruction around him. The force was so great that it knocked him unconscious, and when he woke, he found himself surrounded by Ambu, their masks impassive but their postures tense. "You can't keep doing this, Naruto," one of them said, his voice strained. "The village will tolerate whatever this is." Naruto glared back, his blue eyes glinting with a fury he couldn't quite hide. "You mean they won't tolerate me?" The Ambu members said nothing, only guiding him back to the village in tense silence. But Naruto knew he had reached a breaking point. He couldn't keep holding back, couldn't keep playing the role they had forced on him. He had glimpsed his power, felt the freedom it offered, and he craved it more than anything else. If the villagers saw him as a monster, then maybe it was time to show them just how right they were. That night, as he lay in his small, cold room, the voices came again, louder, clearer than ever. "They don't deserve you, Naruto. They only fear you because they know they can never control you. You are beyond them, beyond their petty lives." Naruto's fists clenched as he listened, feeling the truth of their words resonate within him. He was tired of the cage they had put him in, tired of the constant fear and suspicion. He was ready to claim the power that was rightfully his, to make them see that he was not their puppet, but their reckoning. As the village slumbered, unaware of the storm brewing in its midst, Naruto's resolve hardened. He would become more than their nightmare. He would become their god. And in time, they would bow before him, or they would burn. From the moment Naruto set foot in the academy, he knew he was different. The children in his class were friendly with each other, sharing jokes, trading lunches, and whispering during lessons. They formed small, tight-knit groups, alliances built on trust, laughter, and shared experience. Naruto, however, was left out of it all, an invisible line drawn between him and the others that no one dared to cross. His classmates barely spoke to him, their conversations cut short whenever he tried to join in, as if his mere presence tainted the air. Every so often, Naruto would catch one of them glancing his way, a flicker of curiosity quickly stifled by something darker fear. It was that same look he'd seen in the eyes of countless villagers. He knew he was an outcast, but understanding why seemed just out of reach. No one would tell him the truth. Not Irida-sensei, his teacher, who gave him sympathetic glances but always seemed hesitant to get too close. Not the other teachers, who watched him more closely than they did anyone else, their eyes sharp and suspicious. At first, Naruto tried to ignore it, brushing on the cold shoulders and sidelong glances. He kept a smile plastered on his face, hoping that if he tried hard enough, maybe things would change. But his forced optimism couldn't withstand the reality of his isolation. Days turned to weeks, and each one seemed to drain a little more light from his spirit. Every day was a reminder that he wasn't like the others. He wasn't trusted, wasn't wanted. And worst of all, he wasn't given the chance to prove himself. But as much as the village pushed him away, Naruto couldn't help but want their approval. Despite everything, there was still a part of him that longed to be accepted, to be seen as someone valuable, someone worth knowing. He threw himself into his training, convinced that if he became strong enough, if he worked harder than anyone else, then maybe, just maybe, the villagers would see him as something other than a monster. Yet, every time he tried to excel, his efforts were stifled by the invisible walls around him. His teachers were reluctant to push him too hard, to teach him techniques beyond the basics. Naruto often noticed that while others were encouraged, his attempts were met with caution. Every time he failed, he felt their collective relief, as though they were reassured that his potential remained dormant, his power under control. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being contained, like they were trying to keep him from reaching his true potential. It was a suspicion that gnawed at him, slowly festering into resentment. He could feel something inside him, a power that surged and twisted, desperate to break free. He sensed it most in moments of anger, when he was pushed too far, mocked too harshly, or when the frustration became unbearable. There were times when he could feel his chakra pulse, filling him with a warmth that was both exhilarating and terrifying. It was as though a fire raged inside him, waiting to be unleashed. But every time he tried to tap into that power, he met with failure. The chakras seemed to evade him, sliding out of his grasp like water through his fingers. It was infuriating, knowing that there was a strength within him he couldn't access, an ocean of energy just beyond his reach. One day, during a routine training session at the academy, Naruto's frustration boiled over. He had been trying to master the clone jutsu for weeks, watching as his classmates performed it with ease while he struggled, creating weak, frail imitations that barely held their form. The other students snickered as he tried and failed again, the laughter grating at his already raw nerves. "Come on, Naruto," one of the boys sneered. "Can't you even do a simple clone? Everyone else got it on their first try." Naruto clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. He felt a surge of heat in his chest, a whisper of that hidden power urging him to let go, to show them what he was really capable of. "I can do it!" Naruto shouted, his voice cracking. He focused his chakra, pouring every ounce of his frustration, his anger, his desperation into the jutsu. The energy inside him twisted, raw and untamed, and for a moment, he felt a flicker of that immense power, a tantalizing brush of something ancient and unyielding. But just as quickly, it was gone. The clone he created collapsed into a heap of smoke, a pale imitation of what it should have been. The laughter around him grew louder, the mocking voices merging into a cruel chorus that rang in his ears, each taunt like a dagger to his pride. Iruka-sensei stepped forward, a soft but firm hand on Naruto's shoulder. "That's enough, everyone," he said, silencing the laughter. His tone was gentle, but Naruto could see the worry in his eyes, the slight frown that told him Iruka was watching him carefully, as though he expected something dangerous to happen. The pity in his teacher's gaze was the final blow. Naruto shrugged off Iruka's hand, his face flushed with a mix of anger and shame. Without a word, he turned and ran, leaving behind the jeers of his classmates and the concerned look on Iruka's face. He sprinted through the village, weaving through alleys and side streets, trying to escape the weight of his frustration. He finally stopped at the edge of the forest, breathing heavily as he stared into the shadows between the trees. It was quiet here, far from the prying eyes and harsh words. This was one of the few places where he felt at peace, where he could let down his guard and let the mask slip. As he stood there, his anger slowly faded, replaced by a hollow ache in his chest. He wanted so badly to be accepted, to be acknowledged, but every time he tried, he was met with rejection. No matter what he did, it was never enough. He was trapped in a cycle of failure, his every attempt thwarted by the same invisible barrier. He clenched his fists, feeling the heat of his chakra pulsing beneath his skin. The energy felt different now, more intense, almost angry. He could sense it swirling inside him, like a storm building beneath the surface. It was a power he didn't understand, one that frightened him even as it called to him. "What's wrong with me?" he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. The words hung in the air, unanswered, swallowed by the silence of the forest. For a moment, he thought he heard a voice, a low, almost mocking whisper that seemed to come from within. It was the same voice that had haunted his dreams, the one that spoke of power and destiny, of things beyond his understanding. They fear you because they know what you are? The words sent a chill down his spine. He shook his head, trying to push the voice away, but it lingered, echoing in his mind. He could feel the power pulsing in time with his heartbeat, a dark, ancient force that seemed to revel in his anger, feeding off his frustration. They don't want you to be strong. They want you to remain weak, controllable. But you are more than that, Naruto. You are more than they could ever understand. Naruto took a shaky breath, the weight of the words settling over him. A part of him wanted to reject it, to cling to the hope that one day he would find acceptance. But another part of him, the part that had grown weary of trying and failing, found comfort in the voice. It was a reminder that he wasn't alone, that there was someone who understood him. In the weeks that followed, Naruto's resentment began to grow. He became more distant, his once loud and boisterous personality giving way to a quiet, simmering anger. He stopped trying to win over his classmates, stopped caring about the approval of his teachers. The spark of hope he once held had faded, replaced by a cold determination. He spent more and more time in the forest, practicing on his own, pushing himself to unlock the power he knew was within him. The forest became his sanctuary, a place where he could be himself without the weight of the village's expectations. He honed his skills in secret, testing the limits of his chakra, trying to access that hidden power. And each time he felt a flicker of it, a tantalizing glimpse of the strength buried deep within, he felt his resentment toward the village grow. He began to see the villagers not as his people, but as jailers, keepers of a cage they had forced him into. The whispers in his mind grew louder, feeding his anger, encouraging him to embrace his true power. The desire for acceptance was still there, buried deep beneath the layers of bitterness, but it was quickly being overshadowed by something darker, a desire to prove them wrong, to make them see the strength they had tried so hard to contain. And in the depths of the forest, under the cover of darkness, Naruto made a silent promise to himself. He would grow stronger, not for their approval, but to shatter the chains they had placed on him. He would become a force they could no longer ignore, a power they could no longer deny. One day, they would see him for what he truly was, not a monster, not a failure, but something far greater. Something they could never hope to control. The first hints of bitterness had taken root in Naruto's heart, and as the days passed, he felt himself changing. The boy who once dreamed of acceptance, of being a hero, was slowly fading, replaced by someone who cared little for the village's opinions. He was becoming a shadow, a figure lurking on the edge of their world, unseen and unfathomable. And as he trained alone in the forest, his eyes glinting with a newfound resolve, Naruto felt a strange, fierce pride. He was no longer bound by their expectations. He was something else entirely, a shadow of power, waiting to be unleashed. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees of the forest where Naruto had made his sanctuary. He was deep in training, pushing himself harder than ever before, when he felt a shift in the air. It was subtle at first, an instinctual tug at the back of his mind, but it quickly sharpened into focus. Someone was watching him. Naruto paused, his breath steadying as he scanned the area, but he saw nothing out of the ordinary. Just the swaying trees and the sounds of nature surrounding him. Still, that unsettling feeling didn't leave him. It was as though he was being drawn into a web, the strands invisible but strong. His instincts screamed at him to run, but instead, he held his ground, waiting for whatever was about to happen. Suddenly, a figure stepped from behind a tree, cloaked in shadows. The person wore a long, dark robe, the hood pulled low to obscure their face, but Naruto could sense a presence unlike any he had encountered before. There was a potent energy radiating from this stranger, an aura that felt both inviting and dangerous. It felt familiar, akin to the whispers that had haunted his dreams. Interesting, the figure said, their voice smooth and low, echoing in the stillness of the forest. You've come a long way, Naruto Uzumaki? Naruto narrowed his eyes, instantly wary. Who are you? He demanded, summoning his chakra. It surged around him, a crackling energy that hinted at the power simmering just beneath the surface. "What do you want?" The figure chuckled softly, the sound rich with amusement. "Easy there, little one. I'm not here to harm you. In fact, I'm here to help you, to show you what you really are capable of." "Help?" Naruto scoffed, his guard still up. "Why would you want to help me? Everyone else just wants to keep me down." The figure stepped forward, the hood falling back slightly to reveal a face that was striking and enigmatic. Silver hair cascaded down their back, and eyes like molten gold shone brightly from the shadows. The resemblance to Jiraiya was uncanny, but there was something darker, more twisted in this visage, a hint of something ancient and profound. "Because I see the potential in you, Naruto," they said, their voice laced with a knowing warmth. "The villagers only fear you because they can't comprehend the power you hold within. They've restrained you for so long, haven't they?" Naruto frowned, the words resonating deeply within him. "Yeah, they don't trust me. They think I'm a monster. Not a monster, but a weapon, a tool to control." The figure took another step closer, and the warmth of their presence wrapped around Naruto like a comforting cloak. "You are far more than that. You are the vessel of the Ten Tails chakra, a being with the potential to become something the world has never seen. But to unleash that potential, you must learn to embrace it, not fear it." Naruto felt a stirring within him, a mix of excitement and skepticism. The stranger's words echoed the whispers he had heard in his dreams, and he found himself longing for what they promised. "You really think I can be that powerful?" The figure smiled, a sly yet encouraging expression that ignited a spark of hope in Naruto's chest. "I don't just think it, I know it. But to unlock that power, you need guidance. You need someone who can teach you how to harness it without being overwhelmed." "Who are you?" Naruto asked again, curiosity overriding his caution. "I am called Chimra, a traveler who has seen the world beyond Konoha's borders," the figure replied. "I have trained many who sought strength and knowledge, but you are different. You possess a rare potential, a connection to something ancient. You can become a force that even the strongest shinobi would fear to challenge." Naruto's heart raced. The promise of power, the chance to break free from the chains of his past, was intoxicating. "What do I have to do?" "Follow me," Chimra said, extending a hand. "I will show you the way. Together, we will peel back the layers of what you've been taught and uncover the truth hidden within your soul." After a moment's hesitation, Naruto took a step forward, the warmth of Shinra's energy enveloping him as he reached for their hand. "Okay," he said, determination surging through him. "Let's do this." As they walked deeper into the forest, Naruto felt a shift within him. The darkness that had begun to take root seemed to lift, replaced by a growing sense of purpose. With every step, the weight of Konoha's expectations faded away, leaving only the promise of something greater. Chimra led him to a secluded clearing, hidden from prying eyes. The air hummed with energy, and the ground was littered with ancient stones covered in strange markings. It was a sacred space, a place where the veil between worlds felt thin. Naruto sensed that this was the beginning of something monumental. "Here, we will begin your training," Chimra said, gesturing to the stones. "This is a place of power, a connection to the energies that flow through all living things. It will help you tap into the Ten Tails chakra that lies dormant within you." "What do I need to do?" Naruto asked, his heart racing with anticipation. "First, you must learn to quiet your mind," Chimra instructed, a flicker of authority in their tone. "The power you seek is chaotic and wild. To harness it, you must find balance. Sit here," they said, pointing to a large stone in the center of the clearing, "and focus on your breathing." Naruto nodded, taking his place on the stone. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath as he began to center himself. The sounds of the forest faded away, leaving only the rhythm of his heartbeat. With each inhale, he envisioned gathering his energy, drawing it in like a whirlpool, while with each exhale, he released his doubts and fears. "Good," Chimra encouraged, their voice a soft murmur. "Now, picture the chakra within you. Visualize it, its color, its shape. What does it feel like? Naruto focused, imagining a dark, swirling mass within him, pulsing with energy. It was a beautiful darkness, seductive and powerful. It feels alive, he whispered, caught in the moment. Exactly. Now, reach out to it. Don't fight it, invite it to awaken. Let it fill you, consume you, but remain aware it is not just a weapon, it is a part of you. Naruto nodded, the breath hitching in his throat as he felt the chakra respond to his call. It surged within him, a tempest that threatened to break free. He embraced it, allowing it to course through his veins, igniting every nerve ending with energy. At first, it was overwhelming. He gasped as the chakra surged, filling him with sensations he couldn't comprehend. It felt like fire and ice at once, a torrent of emotions that swirled and twisted. But he remembered Chimra's words, focusing on the balance as he tried to guide the energy instead of resist it. Breathe the Naruto, Chimra urged, their voice a calming presence amidst the storm. Feel it flow, but don't let it take over. You control it, it does not control you. With each breath, he drew deeper into the connection. He felt the warmth spread from his core, pooling into his limbs, enveloping him in a cocoon of strength. It was intoxicating. He could feel the whispers intensify, urging him to unleash his true form, to give in to the power that surged within him. Good. Now, visualize that energy expanding beyond your body, Chimra guided, their presence growing stronger. Let it extend, fill this space. Naruto obeyed, envisioning the chakra flowing outward like a dark mist, wrapping around the stones, enveloping the clearing. He could feel the essence of the 10 tails responding, the chakra thrumming in resonance with his own. The air crackled with energy, and he reveled in the sensation, a sense of freedom flooding through him. As he reached the edge of the clearing, he felt a sudden surge and overwhelming wave of energy that crashed against his mental defenses. He faltered for a moment, the balance slitting as panic began to seep in. Memories of the villagers' distrust flooded his mind, their fear and hatred coiling around his heart. No, he shouted, forcing the thoughts away. I am not weak. With renewed determination, he focused on his breathing, forcing the energy to stabilize. Slowly, the tempest began to settle. The dark mist expanded further, enveloping the clearing in a cocoon of raw power. That's it. Chimra exclaimed, their voice filled with approval. You're beginning to grasp it. Embrace the darkness, it is your strength, not your weakness. In that moment, Naruto felt a connection to something much larger than himself. It was as though the forest around him came alive, responding to his power. The trees whispered secrets, the wind carried tales of ancient warriors, and for the first time, he felt truly alive. But then, a spark of doubt flickered in the back of his mind. Was this really the path he wanted to take? Embracing the power of the 10 tails meant stepping further away from the person he had hoped to become. But Chimra's presence reminded him of the harsh reality he faced every day in Konoha. The village would never accept him. They had already made their choice, and now it was his turn to make his. With a fierce resolve, Naruto opened his eyes, determination blazing in their depths. I want to learn. I want to become stronger, he declared, the energy pulsing through him in response to his words. Then we shall begin your training in earnest, Chimra said, a glint of excitement shining in their eyes. The journey ahead will be difficult, but with each step, you will unlock more of your true potential. You will become a force to be reckoned with, and together, we will show Konoha the truth of who you are. In the weeks that followed, Naruto devoted himself to the training under Shinra's watchful eye. He learned to harness the chaotic energy within him, exploring the depths of his abilities while forging a bond of trust with his mentor. They practiced late into the night, honing his skills, pushing him beyond his limits, awakening a power that lay dormant for far too long. Chimra introduced him to techniques that were forbidden within the walls of Konoha, whispering secrets of ancient jutsu that utilized the 10 tails chakra. They taught him how to manipulate it, how to shape it into weapons of unimaginable destruction, and how to wield it with an artistry that felt both empowering and intoxicating. With each lesson, Naruto felt the shadows within him grow brighter, as if they were lighting the way to a path that had long been obscured by doubt and fear. He learned to call upon his chakra in ways he had never thought possible, creating massive constructs that took form from the darkest shadow beasts that roared to life at his command. As the days turned into weeks, Naruto found himself changing in ways he had never anticipated. The anger and frustration that once consumed him began to twist into something else, something that felt powerful and exhilarating. The shadows that had haunted him became allies, companions that danced alongside him as he trained. He embraced the darkness, and in doing so, he felt more alive than he ever had before. But with the embrace of this power came the knowledge of its potential consequences. As Naruto delved deeper into the teachings of Chimra, he began to understand the burden that came with it. Each use of the Ten Tails chakra threatened to consume him, a reminder of the thin line he walked between mastery and madness. "Do not forget, Naruto," Chimra warned one day as they practiced in the clearing. "This power is seductive. It can twist your mind if you allow it. You must remain vigilant, for the moment you let it control you, you will lose yourself completely." Naruto nodded, the weight of Shinra's words sinking in. He understood the dangers all too well. The villagers had feared him because of the power he contained. If he lost control, it would only reinforce their worst fears. But he was determined to use it not just as a weapon, but as a tool for change, to reshape how he was perceived, to turn their fear into respect. The bond between him and Chimra grew stronger, a mentor-student relationship built on shared goals and mutual understanding. Chimra became not just a teacher, but a confidant. They would sit beneath the stars at night, discussing their dreams, their fears, and their understanding of power and responsibility. Naruto found himself opening up, revealing the scars of his childhood and a loneliness that had long plagued him. "You know," he said one evening, staring up at the night sky, "I never thought I'd find someone who understood. I always felt like I had to fight against everyone, like I was alone in this world." Chimra turned to him, their expressions softened by the moonlight. "You are not alone, Naruto. Many have walked this path before you. It is not the power that defines you, but how you choose to wield it. The village may not see your worth now, but one day, they will." The promise in those words resonated deeply within Naruto. He found himself more resolute than ever, ready to embrace the darkness and wield it for his own purpose. With Shinra's guidance, he would become not just a force to be reckoned with, but a god among men, someone who would shape the very fabric of the world around him. But as he trained and grew stronger, the whispers of doubt began to creep in again. Would he truly be able to change Konoha? Would they ever see him for what he was capable of? Or would they always remain entrenched in their fear and hatred? As he pushed these thoughts aside, he continued his training with renewed vigor. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, he could feel the power within him swelling, threatening to break free. He could sense the presence of the Ten Tails growing more prominent, intertwining with his own essence. "Tomorrow, we will begin to explore your transformation," Chimra announced one day, breaking the pattern of their usual training. "It is time for you to learn how to harness the full might of the Ten Tails chakra." The words sent a thrill through Naruto, a mix of excitement and apprehension. "What does that mean?" he asked, unable to mask the eagerness in his voice. "It means embracing the full spectrum of your power," Chimra explained, their tone serious. "But understand this, transformation is not just about gaining strength, it is about understanding who you are beneath it all. You must confront the very essence of your being, the darkness that lies within." Naruto swallowed hard. The prospect of transformation was daunting. "And if I can't handle it? Then you must prepare yourself for the consequences," Chimra replied. "It can amplify the darkest parts of your soul if you are not careful. But it can also unlock a power that transcends anything you've known." The thought of facing his own darkness sent a shiver down Naruto's spine. He had spent years avoiding it, pushing it away, fearing what it could mean. But now, he had a chance to confront it head-on, to redefine what that darkness meant to him. "Okay," he said, determination setting in. "I'm ready." As night fell, they began the preparations for Naruto's transformation. Chimra instructed him to create a barrier around the clearing, isolating them from the outside world. "This will protect you from outside influences while you undergo the change," they explained. No one can intrude upon this sacred moment. Naruto nodded, focusing on his chakra as he formed the barrier. The air hummed with energy, and he felt a sense of anticipation coursing through him. He could feel the Ten Tails chakra swirling just beneath the surface, ready to erupt. Now, sit and center yourself, Chimra instructed. Allow the energy to flow freely. Embrace it fully. With his heart pounding in his chest, Naruto closed his eyes and sat cross-legged on the ground. He focused on his breathing, inviting the chakra to rise. He could feel it begin to pulse, a tidal wave of raw energy that surged within him, wild and chaotic. Feel it, Naruto, Chimra urged, their voice a steady guide amidst the storm. You must become one with it. Don't fight it, let it take you. As the energy swirled within him, Naruto felt a rush of sensations power coursing through his veins, memories flickering like shadows, fear and anger mixing with exhilaration. He began to lose himself in the depths of the energy, riding the crest of a wave that threatened to swallow him whole. Embrace it. Chimra shouted, their voice cutting through the chaos. Let it flow. You are not just a vessel, you are the embodiment of its will. Naruto roared, his voice echoing through the clearing as the chakra burst forth, engulfing him in a storm of darkness and light. Tendrils of energy wrapped around him, lifting him on the ground, and he felt the world around him blur. It was like being caught in a tempest, swirling and spinning, filled with power and potential. As the energy enveloped him, he could feel the weight of his past and his fears fading away. He was no longer just Naruto Uzumaki, the outcast. He was something greater, a force of nature, a god among men. In that moment of transformation, the world stood still. The chaos melted away, replaced by a clarity that took his breath away. He could feel the presence of the Ten Tails intertwining with his very being, the power flowing into him like molten gold. He opened his eyes, and for the first time, he saw the world through different lenses, sharper, clearer, vibrant with life. The energy pulsed around him, wrapping him in a cocoon of raw strength. He could sense everything, the rustle of leaves, the heartbeat of the earth, the rhythm of life itself. With a triumphant roar, Naruto unleashed the full force of the Ten Tails chakra. The energy erupted around him in a brilliant explosion of light and darkness, illuminating the forest in a surreal glow. He felt invincible, transcendent. But just as quickly, the realization hit him, this power was not without its cost. It surged through him with a wild ferocity, and he felt the delicate balance he had fought so hard to maintain begin to slip. He had embraced the darkness, but in doing so, he was reminded of its dangers. He clenched his fists, struggling to hold on as the energy swirled around him, a storm of chaos threatening to consume him. No. I won't lose myself, he shouted, focusing on his breath once more, forcing the energy to submit to his will. Control it. Chimra's voice rang out, guiding him through the tumult. You are stronger than it. You define your destiny. Naruto roared again, forcing his will upon the energy, commanding it to obey. Slowly, he felt the storm begin to settle, the wildness tamed under his command. He expanded his senses, feeling the energy flow smoothly from within, and as he did, the world around him transformed. Tendrils of darkness and light intertwined, swirling into shapes that danced like shadows beneath the moonlight. The power was intoxicating, but he remained resolute, no longer a pawn of his abilities but a master of them. As the last remnants of the storm faded, Naruto stood tall, breathing heavily but feeling exhilarated. He had faced the darkness within and emerged victorious. He had unlocked a power that was both ancient and boundless, a god among men. Chimra stepped forward, their expression a mix of awe and pride. You have done it, Naruto. You've tapped into the essence of the Ten Tails. But remember, this is only the beginning. You must continue to train and refine your abilities. The power you wield is a double-edged sword. I understand, Naruto replied, his voice steadier now. I won't let it control me. I'll use it to change things, to make people see me for who I really am. As he spoke those words, a sense of purpose ignited within him. The path ahead was uncertain, But he was ready to embrace it. With Chimra by his side, he would carve his own destiny, one that defied the expectations of Konoha and transformed him into the legend he was meant to be. And so, with a taste of power fresh on his lips and a fire of determination in his heart, Naruto Uzumaki took his first steps toward becoming the god among men. The shadows that had once defined him would now be his allies, and he would rise from the ashes of his past, ready to shape a new future. The days bled into weeks, and weeks into months as Naruto's training under Chimra deepened. Each sunrise brought with it an unyielding commitment to mastery. Under the cloak of night, the young ninja honed his skills, practicing techniques that were deemed forbidden in the light of day. He learned to wield the chaotic energy of the Ten Tails, an ancient power that coursed through him like wildfire, igniting every cell in his body with potential and purpose. In their secluded clearing, Naruto often felt a rush of adrenaline as he explored the edges of his newfound abilities. Chimra guided him through the intricacies of manipulating chakra, teaching him how to infuse it with the essence of destruction. He learned to harness explosive power that could obliterate obstacles in an instant, crafting jutsu that felt more like art than mere combat. Feel the energy, Chimra instructed one afternoon, standing across from Naruto, arms outstretched. Let it flow through you, around you. It is a part of you, and you are a part of it. You must learn to command it, not fear it. Naruto nodded, determination etched on his face. He could feel the power swelling within him, an undercurrent that yearned for release. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath as he summoned the Ten Tails chakra. Dark tendrils spiraled around him, swirling and pulsating in a hypnotic dance. The energy felt alive, a force of nature that obeyed his command. With a roar, he thrust his hands forward, unleashing a wave of energy that crashed into the nearby trees. The explosion was deafening, sending splinters and debris flying through the air, and Naruto felt a rush of exhilaration as he watched the destruction unfold. Good. But remember, destruction without purpose is chaos. Chimra's voice rang out, cutting through his moment of triumph. You must harness this power not just to destroy, but to create a new path for yourself. Control is key. The thrill of power was intoxicating, but the shadows of doubt still lingered at the edges of Naruto's mind. Each time he unleashed the Ten Tails chakra, he was reminded of the village's fear. Konoha had always seen him as a weapon, a monster, rather than a person. Their gazes weighed heavy on him, haunting him with their disdain. What do they truly fear? He mused aloud one day, standing atop a cliff overlooking Konoha. Is it the power itself, or what I might become with it? Chimra, leaning against a nearby tree, considered his words. They fear what they cannot understand. Power is often met with suspicion, especially when it comes from a source as dark as the Ten Tails. But that fear can be transformed into respect, and respect can lead to change. Naruto looked out over the village, where life went on as usual, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. The streets bustled with villagers who had once rejected him, their laughter echoing against the walls that had confined him. A spark ignited in his chest, igniting a fire he had long suppressed. The rebellion within him began to take root, whispering promises of vengeance and justice. What if I were to show them my power? Naruto's voice trembled with the weight of his thoughts. What if I didn't hide anymore? Chimra's eyes narrowed, a look of caution crossing their face. Be careful, Naruto. Showing your strength without purpose could provoke the village. They might see you as a threat rather than a solution. You must first gather strength, build a following, and only then will you be able to challenge the status quo. The words resonated within Naruto. He knew that any display of power could lead to disaster, but the desire to be recognized, to claim his rightful place in the world, burned fiercely in his heart. He was done being treated as an outcast, done being the village's scapegoat. With renewed focus, he returned to his training, diving deeper into the forbidden techniques that Chimra had taught him. Each session revealed new layers of the Ten Tails power, fragments of an ancient force that promised destruction and rebirth. He learned to control the dark energy, shaping it into weapons that could obliterate anything in his path. But the thrill of destruction was tempered by the knowledge that each use of his power drew him closer to the edge of darkness. As the days turned into weeks, Naruto felt the strain of secrecy weigh heavily upon him. He found solace in training but yearned for the freedom to express himself openly. With every passing day, the question of Konoha's intentions haunted him more. Why had they sealed away his true potential? Why did they treat him with suspicion when he always sought acceptance? During a training session, he voiced his frustrations to Chimra. Why do they watch me so closely? Why can't they just see who I am? Why can't they understand that I just want to be strong? Chimra paused, contemplating the weight of his words. The village fears what it cannot control. They have kept you at a distance, wrapped in layers of seals, because they see you as a weapon, a tool to be wielded, not a person to be understood. It is time to shift that narrative. Shift it how? Naruto asked, his voice trembling with anticipation. You must demonstrate your strength, but with a purpose. Show them that you are not just the Nine-Tails vessel, you are something more, a warrior, a protector, a force for change. Gather allies, gain their trust, and then let them see the power you wield. Turn their fear into loyalty. A flame ignited within Naruto. He envisioned a future where he would no longer be shunned, where he would rise above their expectations and reshape their perceptions. I'll do it. I'll show them. But in the shadows of his ambition, a nagging doubt lingered. Could he truly control this power without losing himself? As he faced his own inner turmoil, he resolved to tread carefully, for the line between salvation and destruction was razor thin. Weeks passed, and Naruto's training reached new heights. He pushed his body and mind to their limits, his spirit intertwining with the dark energies he wielded. Each day he grew stronger, more adept at harnessing the power of the 10 tails, but with that power came a burden. The whispers in the back of his mind grew louder, taunting him, urging him to embrace the chaos within. Remember who you are, Naruto, he reminded himself as he trained, the words echoing like a mantra. You are not a monster. You are not a weapon. You are Naruto Uzumaki. Despite his determination, he couldn't shake the feeling that his resolve was slipping. As he continued to hone his abilities, the power he wielded became increasingly volatile. He could sense the chaotic energy threatening to consume him, to twist him into something unrecognizable. One night, as he trained alone in a clearing, he felt an unfamiliar sensation wash over him. The energy surged violently, a tempest that threatened to spiral out of control. In that moment of instability, Naruto saw flashes of images, shadows twisting into monstrous forms, darkness swallowing the light. He gasped, struggling to regain control as the chakra surged around him. No. I won't let you take me, he shouted, forcing his will upon the chaotic energy. With a fierce resolve, he focused on his breath, grounding himself in the moment. He could feel the shadows clawing at the edges of his mind, but he pushed back, reminding himself of his purpose. He was more than just a vessel for the 10 tails, he was a person with dreams and aspirations. Gradually, he felt the energy begin to stabilize, the wildness receding as he reasserted control. But the experience left him shaken, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lay just beneath the surface. The next day, he sought out Chimra, eager to share his experience. I felt it last night. The power was uncontrollable. I thought it would consume me. Chimra's expression turned serious, their gaze piercing. That is the danger of the 10 tails. You must remain vigilant. The temptation to give in to that power will grow stronger as you become more adept. Do not let it define you, Naruto. You have the strength to resist, but it will require constant effort. I won't give in, Naruto declared, determination blazing in his eyes. I'll find a way to use this power for good. I want to protect Konoha, to make them see me as their ally, not their enemy. A hint of a smile crossed Chimra's lips, a glimmer of pride shining through. Then you must prepare yourself for what lies ahead. You are on the cusp of a great change, Naruto. But remember, change does not come without sacrifice. As their training continued, Naruto grew increasingly aware of the weight of his ambitions. He knew that to shift the perception of the village, he would need allies, those who would stand by his side, who would believe in his vision. He began reaching out to others, forging connections with those who had felt the sting of isolation, those who had been cast aside. He sought out individuals who had suffered at the hands of Konoha's traditions, and in doing so, he found a growing band of misfits who shared his vision of change. Among them was a boy named Shino, who possessed a quiet strength, a mastery of insects that fascinated Naruto. Shino had often been overlooked by his peers, but his intellect and skill drew Naruto's attention. Another was Ino, a girl with a fierce spirit and a longing for freedom from the expectations placed upon her family. Together, they formed a pact, a bond forged in their shared desire to challenge the village's norms. Naruto gathered them in a secluded clearing, the place where he had first embraced his power. The air was thick with anticipation as he stood before them, ready to reveal the truth of his training and the potential that lay within them all. "I know you've all felt the weight of isolation," he began, his voice steady. "I've felt it too. Konoha has always seen us as outcasts, as burdens. But together, we can change that. We can show them what we are truly capable of." Shino looked contemplative, his gaze steady. "What do you propose, Naruto? We'll train together, harness our strengths, and become a force that cannot be ignored. We'll show them that we are more than just the labels they've placed upon us. We'll build a new legacy." Ino's eyes lit up with determination. "I'm in. It's time to take control of our destinies." As they pledged their commitment to each other, Naruto felt a swell of hope rise within him. He was no longer alone in his fight against the darkness, he had allies who believed in his vision. But deep down, a voice whispered warnings of the path ahead, reminding him of the shadows that lingered just beyond their collective resolve. Days turned into weeks as Naruto and his newfound friends trained together, pooling their strengths and talents. Each session brought them closer, forging a bond that transcended their individual struggles. They shared laughter, victories, and setbacks, learning from one another in ways that no formal training could provide. Naruto focused on honing his control over the Ten Tails chakra, teaching his friends the importance of channeling their energies without fear. With every training session, he felt a growing sense of purpose, but he was also haunted by the realization that their actions would soon draw the attention of Konoha. "Are we ready for this?" he asked his friends one evening, as they sat around a small fire, the night sky blanketed in stars. Ino nodded confidently. "We are not just training for ourselves. We're training for a future where we can be accepted." Shino added, "And if we stand together, we'll be stronger than any opposition we might face. Konoha may see us as threats now, but we'll show them the truth of our intentions." The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows that danced across their faces. Naruto felt the warmth of their camaraderie wrap around him like a shield, and for the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone. Together, they forged a pact, a commitment to one another that would carry them forward, even in the face of uncertainty. But even as hope blossomed within him, the whispers of darkness grew louder, urging him to embrace the chaos within. Naruto fought to silence those thoughts, focusing instead on the bonds he was building. Yet the more he trained, the more he could feel the power of the Ten Tails thrumming in his veins, calling to him with promises of supremacy. As the days passed, the village began to notice the shifts in Naruto's behavior. Whispers circulated among the villagers about his late-night training sessions and the strange energy that seemed to radiate from the forest. Fear mixed with curiosity, and soon Konoha's leaders were drawn into the growing mystery. "What is he up to?" Tsunade wondered aloud during a council meeting, her brow furrowed with concern. "Naruto has always been unpredictable, but this feels different. We must keep a close eye on him." Sakura, seated nearby, shared a worried glance with Kakashi. "He's been distant. I've tried reaching out, but he seems consumed by something." Kakashi remained silent, contemplating the implications of Naruto's actions. He had always believed in Naruto's potential, but now there was a sense of urgency to intervene before things escalated further. In the shadows of the village, Naruto continued to train in secret, unaware of the watchful eyes that scrutinized his every move. The bonds he formed with his friends only fueled his determination to rise above the constraints imposed upon him, but as the days turned into weeks, the pressure began to mount. The night air grew tense, charged with anticipation as Naruto gathered his friends for one final training session before unveiling their plans. Tonight, we break free from the shadows. Tomorrow, we'll show Konoha our true selves, he declared, adrenaline coursing through him. As they trained beneath the pale moonlight, he felt the familiar pull of the Ten Tails power. It thrummed within him, urging him to let go, to embrace the chaos. But he fought against it, focusing on his friends, their shared laughter grounding him. The air was electric as they pushed their limits, melding their abilities into a harmonious blend of power. Each strike resonated with purpose, each jutsu imbued with a spirit of rebellion. Naruto felt the fire of determination ignite within him, fueling his resolve to reshape Konoha's perception of him. But as dawn approached, a dark foreboding hung in the air, a sense of impending change that loomed over them like a storm cloud. Unbeknownst to Naruto and his friends, the village had begun to prepare for the worst, bracing itself for the reckoning that was sure to come. The seeds of rebellion were taking root, and soon, the clash between the shadows and the light would ignite a battle that would forever alter the fate of Konoha. As the sun broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Naruto stood at the edge of the clearing, his heart racing with anticipation. Today would be the day he stepped into the light, leaving behind the shadows that had confined him for so long. His friends gathered around him, their faces reflecting the same mix of hope and uncertainty that filled his heart. "This is it," he said, his voice steady despite a tremor of excitement within. "We'll show them that we're not just the outcasts they think we are. We're more than that. We are the future." Ino nodded, her determination palpable. "Let's do this together. No more hiding." Shino placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, grounding him. "Whatever happens today, we face it as one. We are stronger together." With those words of encouragement echoing in his mind, Naruto stepped forward, leading his friends toward the village. As they approached the gates, he could feel the eyes of the villagers upon them, a mix of curiosity and fear that swirled in the air. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the moment. This was his chance to break free from the chains that had bound him for so long. With every step, he felt the power of the Ten Tails coursing through him, a reminder of the strength he had cultivated in the shadows. But as they reached the center of the village, a hush fell over the crowd. The villagers stared, their expressions a blend of confusion and apprehension. Naruto raised his voice, channeling all his energy into the words he spoke. "People of Konoha, I stand before you not as a monster, but as Naruto Uzumaki. I am not the vessel of the Nine Tails, I am a warrior who has embraced the power within me. I am here to show you what true strength looks like." Gasps rippled through the crowd, and for a moment, time stood still. The villagers exchanged glances, uncertainty clouding their faces. Naruto felt the weight of their gazes upon him, and he pressed on, fueled by the desire to be understood. "You have feared me, isolated me, treated me like a weapon. But I am not your enemy. I am here to fight for you, to protect this village from any threat that may come. Together, we can reshape our destiny." The tension in the air thickened, and just as he thought he might break through, a figure stepped forward from the shadows. Tsunade stood tall, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "Naruto, what is the meaning of this?" He locked eyes with her, determination blazing in his gaze. "I'm taking a stand, Tsunade. I won't be the outcast any longer. I will show you my true potential, and you will see that I am more than just a burden." The murmurs of the crowd intensified, and Naruto felt the stirring of rebellion rise within him. This was his moment to break free from the chains of fear that had held him captive for so long. But Tsunade shook her head, her voice steady yet filled with urgency. "Naruto, you're playing a dangerous game. The power you wield is not something to be taken lightly. You must understand the consequences of your actions." Naruto clenched his fists, the shadows of doubt creeping back in. "I understand all too well. I've lived in the darkness for years. But now, I have the strength to change things. I will not let fear dictate my fate any longer." As he spoke, the air crackled with tension, and Naruto could feel the presence of the Ten Tails surging within him, urging him to embrace the chaos. He fought against it, grounding himself in the resolve to protect those he cared for. Tsunade stepped closer, her eyes searching his for understanding. Naruto, we care for you. But power without control can lead to devastation. You need guidance, not rebellion. But as Naruto opened his mouth to respond, he felt the darkness within him clung to be released. The energy surged, threatening to explode from him in a torrent of chaos. No, he shouted, forcing himself to stay grounded. I am not a monster. I will show you the truth of my power. In that moment of defiance, Naruto unleashed a surge of energy, a burst of the 10 tails chakra that illuminated the village square. The ground trembled beneath him, and the villagers gasped in shock as tendrils of dark energy lashed out, carving into the earth like lightning. But instead of destruction, Naruto focused on control. He directed the energy upward, shaping it into a swirling vortex of power that soared into the sky. The villagers watched in awe as the display of raw energy illuminated the morning light, a spectacle that captured their attention. Behold, he shouted, his voice ringing out with fervor. This is the power I wield. I can use it to protect, to fight for our village. Will you stand with me, or will you continue to live in fear? The crowd remained silent, their expressions a mixture of fear and wonder. Tsunade's face softened as she regarded the display, and for a moment, Naruto thought he might have reached them. But then, from the shadows, a voice broke through the tension, the unmistakable voice of Sasuke. You think power will earn you respect? You're just a fool chasing shadows, Naruto. Naruto turned to face his rival, a surge of anger igniting within him. Sasuke. You don't understand. I'm fighting for acceptance, for a future where we can all be free. Sasuke stepped closer, his expression one of disdain. You're delusional. Embracing that power will only lead to your downfall. You're not the hero you think you are. The words struck Naruto like a blow, and he felt the shadows of doubt creeping back into his mind. Was he truly chasing a path of destruction? Was he risking everything for a fleeting dream of acceptance? But as he looked at his friends, standing beside him in solidarity, he realized that he was not alone. Together, they represented the hope for change, the desire for a brighter future. I may not be perfect, Sasuke, he said, voice steady. But I will fight for what I believe in. I won't back down, and I won't let fear dictate my fate any longer. As the tension in the village reached a breaking point, Naruto stood firm, the 10 tails chakra swirling around him like a tempest. He was on the brink of transformation, caught between the light of his friend's support and the darkness that beckoned him to embrace chaos. But even in that moment of uncertainty, Naruto felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. No matter the outcome, he was determined to carve his own path, to reshape Konoha's perception of him. This was just the beginning of a rebellion that would shake the very foundations of the village, a rebellion fueled by a desire for acceptance, for freedom, and for a future where he could stand proud as a warrior, not as a monster. The day of the Chunin exams arrived with a fervor that ignited the village of Konoha. Flags adorned the streets, and the air was thick with anticipation. Young ninjas from various villages gathered, ready to test their skills and prove themselves worthy of promotion. Yet among the excitement, Naruto felt a storm brewing within him, an anticipation not just for the competition but for the chaos that lay dormant beneath his skin. As he made his way through the crowd, his friends by his side, he noticed the furtive glances cast in his direction. The villagers still viewed him with wariness, despite the power he had begun to display. Each step he took felt heavier, weighed down by the expectations of those who believed he was a monster. But this time, he was ready to confront that fear head-on. Are you ready for this? Ino asked, her voice barely audible over the clamor of the excited crowd. Naruto nodded, his expression serious. This is our chance to show everyone what we can do. We'll prove that we're not the outcasts they think we are. His resolve solidified, and the memory of his secret training sessions surged in his mind. He had learned to harness the energy of the 10 tails, and although he had kept much of it hidden, he could feel its intensity, waiting to be unleashed. This would be the day he stepped into the light, the day he claimed his identity as a warrior. The first round of the exams was nothing more than a test of intellect, but Naruto barely paid attention. His mind was focused on the upcoming battles, the adrenaline thrumming through his veins like wildfire. The thought of combat brought forth the intoxicating allure of power, whispering promises of strength and dominance that resonated with the darkness inside him. As the hours passed and the first round concluded, the second round began, transporting them to the Forest of Death, a treacherous arena designed to push the participants to their limits. The air was thick with tension as the proctor, a grim-faced man named Marino Idiki, explained the rules. The objective was simple: retrieve the opposing team's scroll while protecting their own. Naruto felt a shiver of excitement run through him. This was the chaos he thrived on, a battleground where he could test his strength against formidable opponents. The moment the signal was given, he charged into the forest, his heart racing with exhilaration. The forest was a labyrinth of danger. It concealed traps and monsters lurking in the shadows. But as Naruto sprinted through the underbrush, he felt more alive than ever, the thrill of combat filling his senses. He quickly gathered his team, knowing they would need to work together to overcome the challenges ahead. "Stay close," he shouted, rallying his friends. "We need to watch each other's backs if we're going to win." As they traversed deeper into the forest, they encountered their first opponents, a group of ninjas from the Sound Village. They attacked without warning, unleashing a barrage of kunai and jutsu. Naruto felt the rush of adrenaline surge through him, the tantalizing whispers of the Ten Tails' power growing louder. "Watch out," he warned, as one of the Sound Ninjas charged at him with a sword drawn. With a burst of speed, Naruto dodged to the side, feeling the familiar chakra within him respond to his call. He thrust out his hand, and the air crackled with energy as he summoned the power of the Ten Tails. A shimmering sphere of dark chakra erupted from his palm, engulfing the attacker in a wave of force that sent him crashing into a tree. "Whoa!" Ino exclaimed, her eyes wide with awe. "What was that?" "Just a taste of what I can do," Naruto replied, a grin spreading across his face. He reveled in the thrill of his power, the intoxicating sensation of dominance flooding his senses. "Let's finish them off." With newfound determination, Naruto launched himself into battle, his friends following suit. They fought fiercely, and with each opponent they defeated, Naruto felt the weight of his isolation begin to lift. The taste of victory fueled his ambition, igniting a fire within him that refused to be extinguished. As they progressed through the forest, battling team after team, they encountered another formidable foe, Gaara of the Sand. The moment Naruto laid eyes on him, he felt an inexplicable tension in the air, as if the very world held its breath. Gaara's aura was dark and heavy, radiating a power that rivaled his own. "This will be interesting," Naruto muttered, a grin forming on his lips. "Let's see what you've got, Gaara." The battle that ensued was one for the ages. Gaara summoned his sand, shading it into monstrous constructs that threatened to crush Naruto and his friends. But with each blow, Naruto could feel the Ten Tails chakra bubbling beneath the surface, urging him to unleash its fury. "Focus, Naruto!" Ino shouted, dodging a sand wave. "Don't let it take over." But it was too late. As Naruto felt the pressure mount, the primal energy within him erupted. His eyes flared with a sinister glow, and the air around him distorted with raw power. The villagers watching from the sidelines gasped in horror as they witnessed the transformation. "Naruto!" Sakura cried, fear etched on her face. "Control it." But the darkness was intoxicating. He felt alive, powerful in a way he had never experienced before. The whispers grew louder, drowning out the voices of his friends. "Embrace it. Show them who you are." With a roar that shut the very ground beneath them, Naruto unleashed the full force of the Ten Tails chakra. Tendrils of dark energy lashed out, striking Gaara and his sen with a ferocity that took everyone by surprise. The arena trembled as Naruto embraced his power, reveling in the chaos he had longed for. Gaara's sand defenses crumbled under the onslaught, and for the first time, Naruto felt the thrill of being truly unstoppable. The crowd's fear only fueled his exhilaration, the cheers of his friends drowned out by the tumultuous roar of his newfound strength. But in the depths of his mind, A flicker of doubt began to spark. Was this the path he truly wanted to tread? Was he losing himself in the power that had once felt like a curse? As the battle raged on, the Praetor, realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, stepped in. Stop this! Both of you! You're endangering everyone. Naruto hesitated, the voice of reason cutting through the chaos momentarily. He looked around, taking in the terrified faces of the villagers, the looks of horror etched onto the faces of his friends. Control it, Naruto! Ino yelled, desperation lacing her voice. You're stronger than this. With a pained expression, he struggled against the pull of the Ten Tails, fighting to reclaim himself from the depths of darkness. But the power within him was intoxicating, and with every second, it felt harder to resist. Suddenly, Garz seized the moment of distraction and launched a powerful attack. Sand coffin, he shouted, his sand enveloping Naruto like a vice, pinning him in place. The pressure mounted, and Naruto felt panic rise within him. He fought against the binds, the power of the Ten Tails thrumming within him, urging him to break free. No! Get off me, he shouted, desperation in his voice. With one final surge of strength, he channeled a dark energy, tearing through the sand and erupting into a blinding light. The force of his chakra exploded outward, sending everyone tumbling back. When the dust settled, the battlefield was eerily quiet. The villagers looked on in shock, unsure of what they had just witnessed. Naruto stood at the center, panting heavily, the remnants of the Ten Tails energy swirling around him like a storm cloud. In that moment, he realized the truth of his situation. He had tasted power beyond measure, but it came at a cost. The fear and awe in the eyes of those around him were clear. He had crossed a line, and the consequences would ripple through Konoha for years to come. Suddenly, Orochimaru appeared from the shadows, a sly smile on his face. Ah, how splendid! You've embraced the chaos, haven't you, Naruto? You're precisely the kind of power I've been searching for. Naruto's heart sank at the realization. He had become a pawn in a larger game, and the taste of independence he had craved was slitting through his fingers. With a fierce determination, he took a step back, the adrenaline fading as he steadied his breath. I won't let you use me, he declared, shaking off the remnants of the Ten Tails chakra. Orochimaru's smile widened, revealing a predatory gleam in his eyes. Oh, but you don't understand. You are already entangled in this web. You can't escape your fate, Naruto Uzumaki. The Chunin exams had transformed from a test of skill into a battle for control over his very soul. As the shadows of manipulation loomed over him, Naruto stood resolute, determined to forge his own path, one that would not lead him to darkness, but rather to a future where he could be free from the chains that bound him. The crowd erupted into chaos, the spectators unsure of how to react to the sudden turn of events. Friends and foes alike were drawn into the maelstrom of uncertainty. Naruto's gaze met that of his friends, their expressions the mix of fear and concern. In that moment, he realized the true weight of his power. He had the potential to be a force of destruction, but he also had the chance to protect those he cared about. The choice was his, and he would not allow anyone, not even Orochimaru, to dictate his path. Let's go, he shouted, his voice cutting through the confusion. We're getting out of here? With his friends by his side, Naruto charged into the forest, leaving the chaos of the Chunin exams behind. They sprinted through the underbrush, each step echoing with determination. As they reached the edge of the forest, Naruto glanced back, the fear and uncertainty lingering like a shadow. But he knew he couldn't dwell on the past. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, and he would need to embrace his power on his own terms. From now on, I'll decide who I am, he declared, clenching his fists. No more hiding. As they emerged into the sunlight, Naruto felt the weight of the world lift from his shoulders. The winds of change were blowing, and he was ready to seize control of his destiny. The road ahead would be perilous, but he would face it head-on, a warrior forged in the fires of defiance and rebellion, unyielding in his pursuit of freedom. The Chunin exams had awakened something within him, a force that demanded to be embraced rather than suppressed. With each step, He felt the power of the 10 tails coursing through him, a reminder of the struggle that lay ahead. And as he looked at his friends, their unwavering support ignited a new determination within him. Together, they would rise against the tides of fear and suspicion, ready to carve their own path in a world that had long held them at arm's length. Naruto Uzumaki would no longer be seen as a monster. He would become a legend, a god among men, wielding the darkness with the light of friendship, and standing resolute against any force that dared to challenge his will. The atmosphere in Konoha shifted dramatically after the Chunin exams. Whispers of Naruto's display of power spread like wildfire, igniting fear and concern among the village's elders. They convened behind closed doors, their faces etched with worry, knowing that Naruto's capabilities threatened the very foundation of their authority. In the heart of the village, the tension was palpable. The Hokage's office became a battleground for conflicting opinions as Tsunade stood at the forefront, her expression a mixture of frustration and concern. The council was adamant. They needed to control Naruto before he became a danger to himself and others. The power he displayed during the Chunin exams is unprecedented, one elder exclaimed, his voice shaky with anxiety. We must impose strict restrictions. He's a weapon, not a ninja. Tsunade slammed her fist on the table, her patience wearing thin. Naruto is not a weapon. He is a human being with feelings and dreams. He deserves the freedom to grow, not be caged like an animal. But her words fell on deaf ears. The council members exchanged wary glances, each grappling with their fear of the unknown. They knew the potential for destruction lurked within Naruto, and they could not allow that power to spiral out of control. Outside the council chamber, Naruto felt the weight of their deliberations like a suffocating fog. He had been summoned to the Hokage's office, and as he stood in a doorway, he could sense the tension inside. The moment he stepped into the room, all eyes turned toward him, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Naruto, Tsunade began, her tone a mix of concern and authority. We need to talk about what happened during the exams. I know what you're going to say, he interrupted, crossing his arms defiantly. You want to restrict me, to put me on a leash. I won't let that happen. The elders shifted uncomfortably, but Naruto's fiery gaze held Tsunade's. You saw what I can do. I'm stronger than any of you realized. You can't keep me locked up because you're scared. Fear is not the issue here, Tsunade countered, her voice firm but softening. It's about protecting the village and you. We need to ensure that you can control your powers, and that requires some control. Naruto spat, anger bubbling to the surface. You think I need control? I've spent my entire life being controlled and treated like a monster. I refuse to be your weapon. The council erupted in murmurs, the fear in their eyes replaced with indignation. One elder, a particularly conservative figure named Homura, stood up. You are a danger to this village, Naruto. If you cannot be restrained, then we have no choice but to take action. What kind of action? Naruto challenged, his fists clenching. You think you can force me to submit? I won't allow it. Tsunade stepped forward, trying to mediate. Naruto, please. We're trying to protect you. We just want to ensure that you're safe and that the village remains secure. But the weight of her words only fueled his defiance. You don't understand, he shouted. I'm not just some kid to be protected. I can take care of myself. I've trained hard, and I have the power to protect this village, not destroy it. Another council member, a woman with piercing eyes named Koharu, interjected. You think this is a joke? The power of the 10 tails is not something to be taken lightly. If we don't impose restrictions, you may lose control, and what then? You could destroy Konoha. Naruto's chest tightened at the thought, but he shook his head vigorously. You don't get it. I've been training. I won't let that power consume me. I'll make sure I control it on my own terms. The elders exchanged worried glances, their expressions the mix of skepticism and concern. They were well aware of the consequences of Naruto's unchecked power, and they could not allow fear to dictate their decisions. The tension in the room reached a breaking point. This isn't just about you, Naruto, Tsunade said softly, her eyes pleading with him to understand. You need to think about your friends, your teammates. If you lose control, you could hurt them. We need to be cautious. Naruto felt a surge of frustration. I can protect them. I can be their shield. His voice grew louder, fueled by a passion that resonated deep within him. I refuse to let you turn me into a prisoner of your fear. The confrontation escalated, words flying back and forth like kunai, each argument laced with emotion. In that heated moment, Naruto's resolve solidified. He was done being treated like a child in need of protection. He had tasted true power, and he refused to be shackled by the very people he sought to protect. I won't stand for this, he declared, his voice steady and clear. If you try to control me, I will leave Konoha. I'll find a place where I can be free to embrace who I am with or without your approval. Gasps echoed in the chamber, disbelief washing over the faces of the elders. Tsunade's eyes widened, realizing the weight of his ultimatum. Naruto, don't say that. You're one of us. You belong here. But the conviction in Naruto's heart surged. Not if this is how you treat me. I want to be a hero, not a puppet on a string. Tsunade felt a pang of sorrow, knowing the path he was heading toward was fraught with danger. But before she could respond, Naruto turned on his heel and stormed out of the office, his heart pounding with defiance. The weight of his decision pressed heavily upon him as he walked through the village. With each step, he felt the eyes of the villagers upon him, their expressions a mixture of fear, awe, and uncertainty. He had become a symbol of power, but also a target of their mistrust. As he left the Hokage's residence, he felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, determination, and an undeniable sense of freedom. He had taken a stand, and for the first time in his life, he felt like he was fighting for his own identity rather than conforming to the expectations of others. But with that freedom came a price, and he knew he would have to face the consequences of his actions. He needed to speak with his mentor, the rogue figure who had opened his eyes to the truth of his power. The thought of leaving Konoha behind was both exhilarating and terrifying, but he felt a pull toward a path that promised self-discovery. As he reached the outskirts of the village, Naruto found himself standing beneath a towering tree, its branches swaying in the wind. He closed his eyes, inhaling deeply, allowing the sense of the forest to fill his lungs. The familiar energy of nature wrapped around him, and he felt a sense of calm wash over him. In that moment, his mentor emerged from the shadows, a sly grin on his face. You've made quite the scene back there, haven't you? Naruto turned to face him, his heart racing. I can stay. They want to control me, to make me a weapon again. I refuse to let that happen. His mentor nodded, a knowing glimmer in his eyes. Good. You've realized your worth. But leaving Konoha is a big step. Are you truly prepared for what lies ahead? Naruto felt the weight of his decision settle upon him, but he nodded firmly. I've never been more ready. I want to embrace my power, not hide from it. I won't be caged anymore. Then we must act quickly, the mentor said, a hint of excitement in his voice. The world beyond Konoha is vast and filled with challenges, but it is also a place where you can explore your true potential. You will not only train, but you will also learn about the darkness that comes with such power. I want to be strong, Naruto declared, determination gleaming in his eyes. Not just for myself, but for everyone. I will find a way to protect those I care about, even if it means forging my own path. His mentor's expression turned serious. Then we must prepare you for the trials ahead. You will encounter enemies who seek to exploit your abilities, and you must learn to harness your power without losing yourself to it. Naruto felt a surge of anticipation at the thought. He was ready for the next phase of his journey, ready to become the warrior he had always aspired to be. Let's do it, he said, his voice unwavering. I'll train harder than ever. I won't let anyone dictate my future. As they began to move away from Konoha, Naruto took one last glance back at the village that had both shaped him and shackled him. The weight of his past would always linger, But he was determined to step into the unknown, a world filled with challenges and opportunities where he could finally be free. With each step away from Konoha, he felt the chains of expectation fall away, replaced by a fierce determination to embrace his destiny. The road ahead would be fraught with danger, but he was ready to face it, a warrior unyielding in his pursuit of freedom, rebelling against the chains that sought to bind him. As they journeyed into the wild, Naruto felt the power of the 10 tails swirling within him, a reminder of the strength he possessed. He was no longer a pawn in a game of Konoha's politics. He was a force to be reckoned with, a god among men. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow across the land, Naruto felt a renewed sense of purpose ignite within him. The world was vast and full of untold stories, and he was ready to carve his own path, one that would redefine what it meant to be a ninja in a world ruled by fear and mistrust. The winds of change were blowing, and Naruto Uzumaki was ready to embrace the storm. The dense forest loomed around Naruto as he walked further away from Konoha, each step echoing his resolve to carve out a new path. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, dabbling the ground with shadows and light, and he could feel the pulse of the natural world surrounding him. It was exhilarating. No longer was he the outcast hidden away by the fear of others. He was free to explore the depth of his abilities and forge his own destiny. As days turned into weeks, Naruto traveled deeper into the wilderness, honing his skills under the guidance of his rogue mentor. They trained relentlessly, pushing the limits of his power as Naruto learned to harness the chakra of the 10 tails. He experimented with destructive techniques that made his heart race, each new ability a tantalizing glimpse into the vast potential he had kept suppressed for so long. Yet as he grew stronger, he also attracted attention. The tales of a young shinobi wielding unimaginable power spread like wildfire among the rogue factions and mercenaries that thrived in the shadows of the world. Whispers reached Naruto's ears, groups that wished to ally with him, seeking strength in his growing reputation. But with every offer came a price, and he found himself navigating a treacherous landscape of ambition and treachery. One afternoon, as Naruto practiced a new jutsu in a secluded clearing, he sensed a presence nearby. His instincts honed from years of battle kicked in, and he turned, finding a trio of rogue shinobi observing him from the tree line. They wore the insignias of various villages, their clothes ragged and marked by the scars of conflict. Each one bore the unmistakable look of desperation and ambition. "Impressive," one of them called out, stepping forward with a smirk. He was tall and lean, with an air of arrogance that rubbed Naruto the wrong way. "I'm Kira, and these are my associates, Jin and Yumi. We've heard quite a bit about you, Naruto Uzumaki. What do you want?" Naruto replied, eyes narrowed, unwilling to lower his guard. His mentor stood a short distance behind him, watching intently, ready to intervene if necessary. "We're here to offer you an alliance," Kira said smoothly, gesturing to his companions. "We know you're aiming to make a name for yourself beyond the confines of Konoha. Join us, and we can help you tear down the old system. With your strength and our resources, we could be unstoppable." Naruto's brow furrowed, suspicion creeping into his heart. "Why would I trust you? You're just a bunch of rogue shinobi. What's to stop you from turning on me the moment it's convenient?" Kira's smile faltered slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. "Because we're offering you power, Naruto. You want to break free from the shackles of Konoha, right? We can make that happen. Loyalty breeds loyalty. Fear breeds power." "Fear?" Naruto echoed, disgust creeping into his voice. "Is that what you think this is about? I'm not looking to rule through fear." "Not yet," Jin interjected, a hint of a smirk on his lips. "But the truth is, you have the power to instill fear. Use it. In a world ruled by shinobi, it's the only way to ensure loyalty. We can show you how." Naruto's fists clenched at his sides, wrestling with his emotions. Part of him was drawn to their words, the promise of dismantling his system that had long held him back. But the other part recoiled at the thought of building his future on a foundation of fear. His mentor's teachings echoed in his mind. Power was a tool, but it could easily corrupt if misused. "Tell me," he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "What do you expect in return?" Just your loyalty, Kira replied, shrugging casually. We work together, and we share the spoils. You don't have to be a pawn in Konoha's game anymore. You can be the king. With a measured breath, Naruto glanced at his mentor, seeking guidance. The rogue shinobi remained silent, observing the exchange with keen interest. What do you think? Naruto asked, keeping his voice low. Caution is wise, the mentor said finally. But there is strength in numbers. If you choose to pursue this alliance, ensure you're the one in control. Do not let them use you as a weapon without your consent. Naruto turned back to Kira and his associates, considering his next words carefully. I won't join you blindly. You want my power? You'll need to prove that your intentions align with mine. I don't want to just tear down the system, I want to build something new. Kira's eyes sparkled with intrigue. What did you have in mind? First, we'll target the weakest points in a shinobi world, Naruto said, a fire igniting within him. We'll take down corrupt factions and empower those who've been oppressed. Only then will I consider your offer seriously. Ambitious, Jin remarked, crossing his arms. But if you can back it up with your power, I'm in. Let's see if you can lead, Naruto, Kira added, his grin widening. We'll follow your lead, for now. With that, a tenuous alliance was forged, born from ambition and mutual benefit. As the rogue shinobi departed, Naruto felt a mixture of exhilaration and trepidation. He was stepping into a new realm of power, and he knew the path would be fraught with peril. Yet, for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope. Weeks passed, and Naruto plunged into his new life as a rogue shinobi. He and his newfound allies traveled from village to village, rallying others who shared their disdain for the established order. With each encounter, he felt the thrill of leadership, his voice commanding respect and fear in equal measure. The power that surged within him was intoxicating. He reveled in his abilities, bending the ten-tails chakra to his will and learning to unleash it in breathtaking ways. But as he climbed higher, he began to notice a shift within himself. The exhilaration of freedom was tempered by an undercurrent of darkness that threatened to consume him. He gathered a small cadre of followers, each one drawn to his power and charisma. Some had experienced the same isolation he had, while others simply saw an opportunity to rise against the oppressive forces of their pasts. But Naruto, in his pursuit of freedom, struggled to balance his ideals with the reality of his growing influence. One night, as they camped in a clearing beneath a blanket of stars, the atmosphere turned heavy with tension. They had just returned from a raid on a corrupt merchant who exploited vulnerable villagers, and the spoils were divided amongst his followers. Kira had already begun to sow seeds of discord, suggesting that they should continue their aggressive campaigns against the villages that had wronged them. Naruto, Kira urged, his voice smooth and persuasive, we could take over that small village to the east. They've had their fair share of corruption, and we could easily dominate them. The power we'd gain is a stepping stone to something greater. Naruto hesitated, caught between the thrill of ambition and the nagging voice of morality in his mind. But at what cost? We can't just take whatever we want. We have to ensure we're doing this for the right reasons. Right reasons? Jin scoffed, rolling his eyes. This isn't about morality, Naruto. It's about power. If we don't seize what we can, we're just allowing ourselves to be victims of the system we're trying to overthrow. As the debate raged on, Naruto felt the weight of leadership settle heavily upon his shoulders. He knew that every decision he made would ripple through the lives of those who followed him, and he refused to become a tyrant like those he sought to destroy. Look, I'm not going to force anyone to follow me, he declared, his voice firm. If we're going to dismantle this system, we have to do it with purpose. I won't lead a group that thrives on chaos and destruction. We need to be better than that. Kira's expression darkened, but he masked it with a smile. You may have to rethink your ideals, Naruto. Power isn't won through kindness. It's taken. Naruto felt a chill run down his spine, a flicker of doubt gnawing at him. In his quest for freedom, he had started to feel like he was becoming what he had always fought against. He was being swept away by the tides of ambition, and he needed to regain control before it was too late. Days turned into months, and with every raid and every encounter, Naruto found himself grappling with the complexities of leadership. He encountered shinobi who had suffered under the old system, their eyes filled with hope at the prospect of a new order. They believed in him, and the belief fueled his ambition. But the darker aspects of power began to rear their heads. One fateful night, after a particularly brutal raid, Naruto stood atop a hill overlooking the destruction left in their wake. The flames flickered like stars in a night sky, illuminating the faces of his followers, who reveled in their victory. But as he watched, a gnawing emptiness settled in the pit of his stomach. "What have I done?" he murmured, the realization crashing over him like a wave. He was becoming the very thing he had sworn to oppose, a force that instilled fear and chaos rather than hope and change. As he descended the hill, Kira approached him, sensing his turmoil. "You're second-guessing yourself, aren't you? This is what power looks like, Naruto. Accept it." "I don't want to rule through fear," Naruto replied, his voice strained. "I wanted to bring change, not destruction." Kira's expression hardened, frustration evident. "You're wasting your potential. Embrace the darkness, it's part of who you are. You'll never be accepted back into Konoha, so why bother? We can create something new, something that lasts." Naruto clenched his fists, wrestling with his conflicting emotions. As he turned away, he felt the weight of his power pressing down on him like a suffocating shroud. Each day, he teetered on the precipice of becoming the very monster he had sought to fight against. But the taste of freedom was addictive, and he could feel the allure of his power urging him to surrender to it fully. A month later, tensions reached a breaking point. Whispers of their actions began to circulate among the shinobi world, and Konoha's leaders had taken notice. The village elders, terrified of Naruto's burgeoning power and the chaos he was inciting, sent a team of elite shinobi to deal with the rogue faction once and for all. As Naruto stood with his followers, the tension in the air crackled with anticipation. Hiro was pacing back and forth, his excitement palpable. "They are coming for us, Naruto. This is our chance to show them who's really in control. We'll crush them and prove that we are the future. Or we could defend ourselves without resorting to bloodshed," Naruto countered, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "We need to find a way to protect ourselves without becoming monsters." Hiro's eyes glinted with impatience. "You're still clinging to your ideals, but they won't save you when they come for your throat. Fight back. Show them the true power of the 10 tails." As the sun set, casting a crimson glow across the landscape, Naruto felt a familiar pull towards darkness. The chaotic energy of the 10 tails thrummed beneath his skin, whispering promises of power and dominance. He stood at a crossroads, torn between the ideals he had clung to and the intoxicating allure of absolute power. The battle began at dawn. The elite shinobi, led by a formidable team of experienced ninjas, clashed against Naruto and his followers. He fought with an intensity he had never felt before, his control over the 10 tails' power surging through him, empowering him beyond his limits. Each strike sent shockwaves through the air, and the raw energy of his chakra illuminated the battlefield. He felt invincible as he unleashed wave after wave of destructive jutsu, his enemies faltering before the overwhelming might of his power. The thrill of battle ignited a fire within him, drowning out the voice of doubt that lingered in the back of his mind. But amidst the chaos, he caught a glimpse of the destruction left in his wake. The faces of those he fought against, terrified and desperate, mirrored his own struggles. They were just like him, shinobi fighting for their beliefs, their homes, their families. In that moment, the gravity of his choices hit him. He was becoming a tyrant, a ruler forged in fear, and he couldn't allow that to happen. With a fierce cry, he called upon the last vestiges of his power, channeling the 10 tails chakra into a massive surge that erupted from within him. The ground shook as a powerful blast swept across the battlefield, scattering his enemies and sending them retreating in terror. As the dust settled, Naruto stood alone amidst the chaos, panting heavily. He had won, but at what cost? The echoes of battle faded into silence, leaving only the weight of his choices heavy on his heart. He could feel the dark allure of power calling to him, but he had to fight it. Kira approached, eyes gleaming with excitement. See? This is just the beginning. We can take on the world, Naruto. Together, we'll be unstoppable. But Naruto shook his head, his resolve hardening. No, Kira. This isn't what I wanted. I won't be a monster. In that moment, the realization struck him. He had to break free from the very alliance he had forged. The rogue shinobi who had promised power and freedom were now the shackles that bound him to the darkness. As he turned away from Kira, he made a decision that would alter the course of his destiny forever. He would no longer be a pawn in anyone's game. He would forge his own path, even if it meant standing alone. I'm done, he declared, voice firm and unwavering. I won't follow your vision anymore. I will create my own future, one that doesn't involve the destruction of innocence. With that, Naruto walked away from the chaos, leaving behind the remnants of the battlefield and the allure of darkness. The path ahead was uncertain, but he was determined to find a way to wield his power responsibly. As he stepped into the unknown, he felt the weight of the Ten Tails chakra stirring within him, but he was no longer afraid. He would learn to control it, to make it a part of who he was without succumbing to its darkness. He would redefine what it meant to be a shinobi, one who fought for justice, freedom, and redemption. In the months that followed, Naruto wandered the land, seeking out those who had suffered under the oppressive shinobi system. He became a rogue hero of sorts, offering protection to those in need and using his power to stand against corruption wherever he found it. He fought battles not to destroy, but to liberate, and in doing so, he began to cultivate a new vision for the future. The lingering shadows of his past would always haunt him, but he was determined to rise above them. As he journeyed, he felt the whispers of the Ten Tails grow softer, as if recognizing his intent. The power that had once threatened to consume him became a part of him, a tool to be wielded for a greater purpose. And as Naruto embraced his new life, he learned that true strength didn't lie in the destruction he could unleash but in the choices he made and the people he chose to protect. In the twilight of his journey, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Naruto stood at the edge of a cliff, looking out over a vast expanse of land filled with endless possibilities. The wind tousled his hair, and for the first time, he felt at peace. He was no longer an outcast. He was a rogue shinobi with a mission to reshape the world, one battle at a time. His heart swelled with determination as he gazed into the distance, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. The shadows of his past may have lingered, but they would not define him. He was Naruto Uzumaki, a god among men, and he was ready to forge a new path for himself and for the future of the shinobi world. The wind swept across the barren landscape, carrying the scent of change as Naruto moved through the underbrush. His reputation had grown, echoing through the hidden villages and catching the attention of those in the shadows. It wasn't long before whispers of a powerful rogue shinobi reached the ears of the Akatsuki, the notorious organization that thrived on chaos and ambition. He had fought against their forces before, defeating several of their members with ease. It felt exhilarating to dismantle their plans, each battle a testament to his growing power. But now, as he stood atop a rocky outcrop, surveying the world below, he sensed that they would not be so easily deterred. Your power is immense, Naruto Uzumaki, a voice called out from behind him, smooth and confident. He turned to find a figure stepping from the shadows, cloaked in the signature red clouds of the Akatsuki. It was Deidara, the explosives expert, a playful smile dancing on his lips. You've become quite the legend, haven't you? Naruto narrowed his eyes, instinctively preparing for a fight. What do you want, Deidara? Oh, we're not here to fight, Deidara replied, raising his hands in a placating gesture. At least, not today. The Akatsuki sees potential in you, Naruto. We want to offer you a deal. A deal? Naruto echoed, skepticism lining his voice. Why would I want anything to do with the Akatsuki? You're nothing but a bunch of rogue criminals. Deidara chuckled, the sound echoing around them. True, true. But you must admit, your power could complement our goals. We want the Ten Tails, and you, my friend, are its perfect vessel, Together, we could change the very fabric of this world. Naruto's heart raced at the mention of the 10 tails. The power that coursed through him was intoxicating, and the idea of wielding it alongside the Akatsuki was a tempting proposition. But he was cautious. The Akatsuki's reputation was one of manipulation and betrayal. "What's in it for you?" he asked, his tone hardening. "You want to control me just like everyone else. I'm not interested in being anyone's pawn." Deidara's smile widened. "I respect your spirit, Naruto. But think about it. With the combined might of the Akatsuki and your power, we could reshape the world. We would have the strength to eradicate those who oppress and control others, and you would be the one who decides the fate of the shinobi world." Naruto considered this carefully. The promise of change and the potential to uproot the existing power structures resonated with his own desires. But he would not allow himself to be manipulated again. "I want to be clear," he said, stepping closer to Deidara, his gaze unwavering. "If I join you, it's on my terms. I'm not looking to follow anyone's lead. I want to be a force you serve, not the other way around." Deidara raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "An interesting proposition, Naruto. You would make a fine leader. We are not used to having someone so powerful amongst us who demands respect. Respect isn't given freely. You'll have to earn it," Naruto shot back, feeling a surge of confidence. "But if you can provide me with knowledge about the 10 tails and help me hone my abilities, then I'll consider this alliance." The two stared at each other, a silent agreement hanging in the air, and Deidara finally nodded, a grin spreading across his face. "Welcome to the Akatsuki, Naruto Uzumaki. Together, we'll make waves." As the days turned into weeks, Naruto found himself drawn deeper into the machinations of the Akatsuki. They provided him with resources and information he had never imagined, including insights into the ancient powers of the 10 tails that had eluded him. The alliance felt different. He was no longer the outcast, but a significant player in a much larger game. Yet, even as he embraced his new role, he felt the weight of expectations bearing down on him. The Akatsuki members were a complex tapestry of ambition, and Naruto had to navigate their power dynamics carefully. He was no longer just a rogue shinobi, he was a member of an organization filled with deceit and manipulation. Hisame, the shark-like swordsman, approached him one afternoon in the Akatsuki's hideout, a lair hidden deep within the mountains. "You've made quite an impression, kid," he said, leaning against a stone wall, his massive sword, Samehada, resting beside him. "But remember, respect is earned, not given. Don't let the others push you around." "I know that," Naruto replied, his voice steady. "But I'm not going to back down from anyone. They may think they can control me, but I'm in this for myself." Hisame chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. "That's the spirit. Just don't get too cocky. You may be strong, but the Akatsuki is full of powerful shinobi, and they won't hesitate to cut you down if they think you are a threat." The warning hung in the air, a stark reminder of the precarious balance of power within the organization. As much as he was becoming a part of this group, he knew he had to remain vigilant. As weeks passed, Naruto's power continued to grow. He delved deeper into the mysteries of the 10 tails, discovering techniques that allowed him to harness its immense chakra without losing himself to the darkness. The knowledge the Akatsuki provided was invaluable, but he also learned to distrust his allies. Their motivations were often hidden behind veils of ambition. One evening, as Naruto practiced a new jutsu, he felt a familiar presence behind him. It was Itachi Uchiha, a figure whose reputation preceded him. The former member of the Akatsuki was shrouded in mystery, and Naruto felt an instinctive wariness around him. "You're growing stronger, Naruto," Itachi said, his voice calm and collected. "But strength alone does not guarantee victory." Naruto paused, turning to face the Uchiha. "I'm aware of that. I'm not just aiming for power, I want to make a difference." Itachi's expression remained inscrutable. "The path you're walking is fraught with peril. The Akatsuki has its own goals, and their vision may not align with yours. Be cautious whom you trust." "I can handle myself," Naruto replied, a hint of defiance in his tone. I'm not naive. I'll forge my own path, regardless of what they want. Determination is admirable, Itachi acknowledged, nodding slowly. But remember, power can corrupt even the noblest of intentions. Stay true to your vision, and don't lose sight of what truly matters. Naruto absorbed Itachi's words, understanding the weight behind them. The more powerful he became, the more he had to guard against the darkness that loomed on the horizon. As the months rolled on, the Akatsuki continued to execute their plans, drawing Naruto deeper into their schemes. They targeted various villages, recruiting disillusioned shinobi and dismantling corrupt factions. Each mission was a test of his abilities and leadership, and he thrived under the pressure, reveling in the chaos they sowed. But with every victory, a nagging doubt crept into his mind. The line between ally and enemy blurred as Kira, still lurking within the shadows of the organization, continued to whisper his brand of ambition into the ears of others. There was a growing rift within the Akatsuki, factions forming around differing ideologies, and Naruto knew that conflict was inevitable. It wasn't long before the tension reached a boiling point. During his strategy meeting, the members gathered around a table covered in maps and plans. Kira, emboldened by Naruto's growing influence, stood at the forefront, arguing for a more aggressive approach. We need to strike hard and fast against the villages that threaten us. Weakness should be exploited, Kira urged, his eyes burning with fervor. If we don't take decisive action, we'll be seen as a joke. Naruto clenched his fists, frustration bubbling to the surface. You don't get it. We can't just go in guns blazing. We need to win the hearts and minds of the people. If we act like monsters, we'll become the very thing we're fighting against. Don't you see? Kira shot back, frustration seeping into his voice. The people won't follow you out of kindness. They'll follow you out of fear. That's how you gain power. As the argument escalated, Naruto felt the room grow heavy with tension. He knew that Kira's mindset was dangerous, and if left unchecked, it could unravel everything he had worked for. Fear won't win us loyalty, Kira. We need to show the villages that we can offer them something better. But Kira was relentless, his eyes blazing with ambition. You're a fool if you think that will work. The only way to be respected is to prove your strength. You've become complacent, thinking you can change the world with mere words. The clash between Naruto and Kira echoed through the chamber, drawing the attention of the other Akatsuki members. They watched, captivated by the fiery exchange, unsure of where their loyalties lay. Naruto took a deep breath, his heart racing. He needed to reassert his position, to remind them who he was and what he stood for. I'm not here to rule through fear or domination. I'm here to fight for a better future, and if you can see that, then maybe you don't belong in this alliance. With that, he turned away from Kira, the weight of the confrontation lingering in the air. He knew the tension wouldn't disappear overnight, but he had to hold his ground, or risk losing himself in the chaos. As days passed, the rift between Naruto and Kira grew, fueled by their clashing ideologies. Tensions within the Akatsuki simmered, and the threat of internal conflict loomed over them. Naruto understood that he had to navigate this minefield carefully, lest he become the very monster he sought to combat. Yet, despite the mounting pressure, he remained committed to his vision. The bonds he forged with those who believed in him, those who sought to create change alongside him, became his lifeline. He refused to be drawn into Kira's world of brutality, even if it meant standing alone. Then came the day when their disparate visions collided head-on. Kira proposed an all-out assault on a nearby village, one he deemed weak and ripe for conquest. He rallied supporters, painting a picture of glory and dominance, urging them to embrace their power and strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. Naruto stood at the center of the Akatsuki base, a fire burning within him as he faced Kira. I won't allow this. We can't just attack innocent people to prove our strength. Kira stepped closer, his demeanor shifting to one of cold resolve. Then you'll be standing in my way. This isn't just about you anymore, Naruto. If you won't join us, you'll be a liability. The room fell silent as the implications of Kira's words sunk in. This was no longer a matter of differing opinions, it was a challenge to Naruto's authority. If it comes to that, so be it, Naruto said, his voice steady and unwavering. I won't let you drag us down this path of destruction. Kira's eyes narrowed, the tension between them palpable. You think you can stop me? You're strong, but you're not invincible. The others will follow my lead if you don't act. He turned to the gathered Akatsuki members, appealing to their desires for power and recognition. Join me, and we will show the world the true strength of the Akatsuki. Together, we'll forge a new path of dominance. But Naruto wouldn't back down. You may gather support through fear, but I will show them what it means to stand for something greater. I will fight for a future where we protect, not destroy. As the two factions prepared for confrontation, Naruto felt the weight of his choices pressing down on him. He had fought too hard to become a force of change, and he wasn't about to let Kira's ambitions drown out his vision. The battle erupted, pitting those who supported Kira against Naruto and his loyal allies. The clash of ideologies transformed into a brutal struggle for power, each side determined to assert its dominance. Naruto fought with ferocity, drawing upon the depths of his power, the Ten Tails chakra surging through him like an untamed beast. He felt invincible, each jutsu he unleashed devastating in its raw strength. But he fought not for destruction, but to defend his ideals. Kira, on the other hand, unleashed chaos. His approach was ruthless, seeking to break his opponents with overwhelming force. The air crackled with energy as the two sides clashed, and Naruto found himself pitted against Kira, their fates intertwined. Why can't you see? Kira shouted, his voice filled with rage as they exchanged blows. This is the only way to gain the respect we deserve. The weak must be crushed. Respect isn't built on fear, Kira. Naruto retorted, channeling his chakra into a powerful jutsu. It's earned through compassion and strength of purpose. The battle raged around them, the echoes of their confrontation reverberating through the battlefield. Naruto felt the pull of darkness in Kira's attacks, a desperate bid to claim victory at any cost. But he remained resolute, channeling the light of hope even in the midst of chaos. With a surge of determination, he unleashed a powerful technique, a massive wave of energy that crashed against Kira's assault. The force of their clashing ideals sent shockwaves through the air, a testament to their diverging paths. Join me, Naruto? Kira shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. Together, we could be unstoppable. But Naruto shook his head, his expression unyielding. I'll never stand with someone who values destruction over hope. I will fight for a future that protects the innocent. With that declaration, Naruto tapped into the depths of the Ten Tails' power, channeling it into a final, decisive strike. The energy surged around him, illuminating the battlefield as he pushed back against Kira's relentless assault. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves throughout the area, and as the dust settled, Naruto stood tall amidst the chaos. He had won, but at a cost. The rift within the Akatsuki had widened, and the price of their clash would leave scars on their alliance. As he surveyed the aftermath, he realized the battle was far from over. The Akatsuki was a complex web of ambition and betrayal, and he would need to navigate it carefully if he hoped to reshape the world. But for now, he had asserted his vision. He would not allow the darkness to consume him or those he sought to protect. He would carve his own path, one forged through hope, strength, and the unwavering belief that a better future was possible. With the winds at his back, Naruto stepped forward, ready to embrace the challenges ahead. The world lay before him, vast and uncertain, but he was no longer just a rogue shinobi, he was a leader in the making, determined to rise above the shadows and forge a new destiny. The moon hung high in the night sky, casting an ethereal glow over the landscape as Naruto stood at the outskirts of Konoha. The village that had once been his home now felt foreign and distant, a remnant of a past he had left behind. But tonight, he would confront the very foundations of the system that had sought to control him. As he approached the village gates, the familiar sights flooded his mind, memories of laughter, camaraderie, and the dreams he once held dear. But those memories were tainted now, marred by the realization that Konoha had never accepted him for who he truly was. Instead, He had been seen as a weapon, a tool to be controlled. With a deep breath, he stepped through the gates, the guards standing frozen in shock as they recognized him. Their eyes widened in disbelief, and they exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to respond to the rogue shinobi who had once been a part of their village. Naruto's presence radiated power, the aura of the 10 tails seeping into the air around him. He could sense the fear and hesitation in their hearts, and it fueled his resolve. This was the moment he had been waiting for. As he walked through the streets, whispers followed in his wake. Villagers stared at him with a mix of awe and fear, some retreating into their homes as he passed. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and the memories of how he had been treated weighed heavily on him. He made his way toward the Hokage's office, where he knew the council would be gathered, debating his unexpected return. The elders and the Hokage had surely sensed his power, and their fear would only grow as he revealed his intentions. Pushing open the doors to the Hokage office, Naruto stepped inside, his presence commanding attention. The room fell silent, eyes widening as the villagers, including his former teachers and friends, stared at him in disbelief. "Naruto!" Sakura exclaimed, her voice laced with shock. "What are you doing here?" Naruto's gaze swept over the faces he once considered family: Sakura, Iruka, Kakashi, and others. But there was no warmth in his heart, only the cold indifference that had taken root since he had left. "I'm here to issue an ultimatum," he said, his voice steady and unyielding. "Konoha must surrender and accept my new world order, or face annihilation." Gasps echoed around the room, disbelief etched on the faces of those who had once believed in him. "You can be serious?" Iruka exclaimed, stepping forward, desperation in his voice. "This isn't you, Naruto. You're threatening your own village." Naruto's eyes narrowed, the bitterness rising within him. "This is exactly who I am now. You all treated me like a weapon, never giving me the chance to become who I truly am. You think I'm here to play nice? I'm done being controlled." "What happened to you?" Kakashi asked, concern lacing his tone. "We were your friends, Naruto. We wanted to help you." "Help?" Naruto scoffed, the bitterness lacing his words. "You wanted to keep me in chains, keep me under your watchful eyes. You never wanted to help me, you wanted to control me. That ends now." Sakura stepped forward, her expression a mixture of shock and sorrow. "We've always cared about you, Naruto. Please, reconsider this path. You don't have to do this." Naruto's heart clenched at the sight of her distress, but he quickly pushed the feeling aside. "You don't understand, Sakura. This village has turned its back on me. I won't stand by and let you continue to oppress those who seek power. I'm giving you a chance to join me, to embrace the new order I'm creating. If you refuse, I won't hesitate to destroy what you hold dear." The room was filled with a heavy silence as they processed his words. The weight of his declaration hung in the air, palpable and suffocating. "But Naruto," Iruka began, his voice trembling. "We can find a way to work together. We can help you control your powers. You don't have to resort to violence." A cold laugh escaped Naruto's lips. "You think I need your help? I've surpassed you all. I've discovered powers you couldn't even dream of. I won't be treated like a child anymore." Kakashi stepped forward, his demeanor serious. "If you're planning to wage war, then we will fight back. We will protect Konoha at all costs, even if it means facing you." Naruto's expression hardened, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "Then you've made your choice. You'll see the consequences of your actions when I unleash the true power of the 10 tails." With that, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the office, leaving behind a room filled with shock and despair. As he exited the building, he felt the weight of their disbelief pressing against him, but he wouldn't allow their emotions to sway him. He had severed the bonds that had once held him to this place. As he left Konoha, a mixture of resolve and bitterness surged within him. He was no longer the hopeful boy who had longed for acceptance, he was a force of nature, determined to carve his own path. The village had betrayed him, and he would show them the power of true freedom. Over the next few days, Naruto gathered his allies, the rogue factions of the Akatsuki, strategizing their next moves. He was no longer just a member, he was becoming a leader, a symbol of rebellion against the oppressive forces of the shinobi world. Hira had taken note of Naruto's ultimatum, his own ambitions ignited by the prospect of seizing control. "This is exactly what we need, Naruto," he said, a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. "With your power and my strategy, we can tear down Konoha's defenses. We'll show them the true meaning of fear." "Fear isn't the only tool we have," Naruto replied, his tone sharp. "We need to unite the rogue factions under a common cause, not just for vengeance. If we want to build a new order, we need loyalty, not submission." Hira scoffed, but Naruto's conviction remained unshaken. The vision he held for the future was one of strength and unity, not mindless destruction. He wanted to build something greater, but he understood that trust would not come easily. As they plotted, Naruto felt the tension mounting within him. Konoha had rejected him, but he still had lingering attachments, those who had once fought beside him. Would they truly become his enemies, or could he find a way to reconcile their differences? One evening, as he sat atop a cliff overlooking the valley, lost in thought, he felt a familiar presence approach. It was Sakura, her figure outlined by the moonlight. "Why are you here?" he asked, his tone guarded. He had expected her to stay within the safety of Konoha, far from his growing power. "I came to talk," she replied, her voice steady despite the distance between them. "I wanted to understand what you're doing, Naruto. Why this path?" He scoffed, crossing his arms defensively. "You wouldn't understand. You still cling to your old ideals, to the system that tried to control me." "I want to understand you," she insisted, taking a step closer. "I want to know why you think this is the only way." "Because it is the only way," he snapped, the frustration spilling over. "I spent my whole life fighting for acceptance, only to be treated like a weapon. I won't let anyone control me again." "Is this really about control?" Sakura asked, her voice gentle. "Or is it about the pain of being abandoned? You're pushing everyone away, Naruto. You don't have to do this alone." "Alone?" he echoed, disbelief washing over him. "I'm not alone. I have the Akatsuki at my side. I'm building a new future." "But at what cost?" she pressed, her eyes searching his. "You're sacrificing your friendships, your humanity. Is power worth losing everything you once cared about?" Her words struck a chord within him, and he felt a flicker of doubt. The darkness he had embraced was suffocating, and he had pushed away the very people who had once fought for him. But he couldn't allow that to sway him. "I don't have time for this," he said, his voice growing cold. "You've made your choice, Sakura. You can either join me or stand against me. But if you choose the latter, you'll be just another casualty in this fight." Sakura's face fell, the hurt evident in her expression. "You don't have to do this. We can find a way to work together, to protect everyone without resorting to violence." Naruto shook his head, the distance between them palpable. "You don't understand. I won't allow myself to be shackled by your ideals. I'm done being a pawn in someone else's game." With that, he turned away, leaving Sakura standing alone in the moonlight, her heart heavy with sorrow. He felt a pang of regret for the bond they once shared, but he had made his choice. He was no longer the boy who craved acceptance, he was a force of change, even if it meant walking his solitary path. As he returned to his allies, he steeled himself for the battles that lay ahead. Konoha would not submit easily, and he knew he would have to confront not only the village but also the emotional toll of severing those bonds. Days turned into weeks, and the tension between Naruto and Konoha grew. He watched as his former friends prepared for conflict, their resolve only strengthening his determination. He had become a symbol of rebellion, and the time for action was drawing near. But as he stood on the precipice of war, he couldn't shake the lingering doubts that danced at the edges of his mind. Was this truly the path he wanted to walk? Would he find solace in power, or would it consume him entirely? The time for action came when he gathered the Akatsuki and their allies, standing at the borders of Konoha. The village lay before them, a bastion of what he had once called home. But now, it was a target, a symbol of everything he had fought against. Kira stood beside him, a fervor in his eyes. "This is it, Naruto. Let's show them the power we hold." "Hold back," Naruto warned, raising a hand. "We strike with purpose. We want them to understand our strength, not simply fear it. This is about reshaping the world, not just annihilating them." The gathered rogue shinobi nodded, their expressions the mix of anticipation and excitement. Naruto could sense the surge of power emanating from them, a reflection of his own resolve. He had become a leader, and this moment would define the course of their future. As they moved toward the gates of Konoha, Naruto felt the weight of his choices settling upon him. He had severed his bonds, but the memories of friendship and love still lingered, battling against the darkness he had embraced. When they reached the gates, the defenders stood ready, prepared to protect their village at all costs. The tension in the air crackled like electricity, and Naruto felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. The time had come to confront his past and reshape the future. Would Konoha accept his vision, or would he have to tear it down to build something new? As he raised his hand, ready to unleash the power of the Ten Tails, he caught a glimpse of the faces he once knew: Sakura, Iruka, Kakashi standing against him, unwavering in their determination to protect their home. And in that moment, doubt gnawed at the edges of his resolve. Would he truly become the monster they feared, or could he find a way to change the world without sacrificing the bonds he had once cherished? "Prepare yourselves," Kira shouted, his voice cutting through the uncertainty. "We fight for our future?" But in that instant, Naruto hesitated. Perhaps there was still a chance for redemption, a way to reclaim the connections he had severed. With a surge of determination, he lowered his hand, the power of the Ten Tails swirling around him like a tempest. "Stop," he shouted, his voice booming across the battlefield. "We don't have to do this." His allies looked at him in confusion, and Kira's expression darkened with anger. "What are you doing? We can't back down now." But Naruto stood firm, his gaze sweeping over the faces of Konoha's defenders. "I won't become the monster you fear. I want a future where we can all coexist, where power doesn't mean destruction. I refuse to sacrifice everything for a vision built on chaos." As his words echoed in the air, he saw the flicker of hope ignite in the eyes of his former friends. Would they understand? Could he bridge the gap between his newfound ideals and the bonds he had once cherished? In that moment, he realized that he didn't have to choose between power and connection. He could forge a new path, one that embraced both. But it would require understanding, compromise, and a willingness to face the demons of his past. "I'm here to make a stand," he declared, his voice steady. "Not against you, but for a future where we can protect each other. Let's find a way to reshape this world together, without fear." The tension in the air shifted, uncertainty giving way to a flicker of possibility. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but as Naruto stood before Konoha, he knew he was ready to fight not just for power, but for the bonds that could heal the wounds of the past. And in that moment of clarity, he understood that true strength lay not in domination, but in the courage to connect, to grow, and to fight for a better future together. In the days that followed the confrontation at Konoha's gates, Naruto found himself grappling with an unfamiliar sense of turmoil that clawed at the edges of his consciousness. As he'd embraced the power of the Ten Tails and the loyalty of his newfound allies, shadows from his past began to rise, disturbing the once clear path he had forged for himself. Late at night, when the world outside his tent was quiet and still, he would lie awake, staring at the canvas ceiling, the weight of his decisions pressing heavily on his chest. The power within him was intoxicating, a raging storm that promised limitless potential. Yet, amid the chaos of his thoughts, he experienced vivid visions, flashbacks to moments long buried. One night, as the stars flickered like distant candles in the sky, he was suddenly engulfed by a vision. He stood in the training field of Konoha, surrounded by the laughter and camaraderie of his former teammates. The air was bright with the energy of youth, filled with the sounds of Team 7's friendly banter. Come on, Naruto. You can do better than that. Sakura shouted, her eyes sparkling with determination. Shut up. I'm not trying to show off, he retorted, the playful banter rolling off his tongue as they sparred under the warm sun. Kakashi watched from the sidelines, a lazy grin on his face as he read his book. Just remember, Naruto, it's not all about brute strength. Strategy matters too. In that moment, everything felt right. He was not just a vessel for power, he was a part of something greater. His heart swelled with the warmth of belonging, the bond that had united them all. But as quickly as the memories surfaced, it shattered like glass, and he was thrown back into the present, the familiar sensation of emptiness crashing over him. The exhilaration of power was cold comfort against the longing for the connections he had severed. The visions came more frequently, each time dragging him deeper into a sea of confusion and regret. In another flashback, he saw himself and Sasuke training together, their competitive spirits igniting a fierce but friendly rivalry. The laughter echoed through the air as they pushed each other to new heights. Just you wait, Sasuke. I'll be stronger than you one day. Naruto declared, his determination palpable. You can try, Sasuke replied with a smirk, his tone teasing yet filled with genuine respect. Each memory was a bittersweet reminder of what he had lost. He had sought to become a god among men, yet with every vision, the stark contrast between who he was and who he had become gnawed at his soul. The more powerful he became, the more isolated he felt. His ruthless path left a chasm within him, a void that grew more apparent with every passing day. Days turned into weeks, and the visions grew more intense. They plagued him during his training sessions with the Akatsuki, distracting him as he sought to master the depths of his power. Kira watched him closely, noticing the change in his focus. Naruto, you need to concentrate. This isn't a game. Kira snapped one evening, frustration seeping into his tone as they practiced in the dim light of their hideout. I know. Naruto shot back, his temper flaring. It's just, I can't stop thinking about the past. The past is gone, Kira replied, his expression hardening. We have the future to think about. The more you dwell on your memories, the more it will hinder your power. You need to let go. But how could he let go? Each time he closed his eyes, he was reminded of the bonds he had cast aside in his pursuit of strength. The memories of Team 7 haunted him, whispering of a time when he had been loved, not feared. As he trained, he found himself growing more reckless. The power of the 10 Tails surged through him like wildfire, and with it came an insatiable hunger for more. He wanted to consume the very essence of strength, but the deeper he delved, the more he felt the weight of his choices. One evening, while perched atop a cliff overlooking the valley, Naruto was engulfed by another vision. This time, it was a moment he cherished most, a day when he had finally brought Sasuke back to Konoha after their intense battle at the Valley of the End. They stood together, bloodied and exhausted, but the bond between them had never felt stronger. You're a pain, you know that, Sasuke had said, the corners of his mouth twitching into a faint smile. Yeah, but I'm your pain, Naruto had replied, his heart swelling with joy. And I'll always be there for you. Tears stung his eyes as the vision faded, leaving him standing alone in the moonlight, feeling more isolated than ever. He had traded that connection for the hollow promise of power, and now he was left with nothing but echoes of laughter that faded into silence. Frustration boiled within him, and he let out a primal roar, unleashing a wave of chakra that sent ripples through the air, shattering the tranquility of the night. The trees trembled, and the ground shook beneath him, but the release only brought temporary relief, a fleeting distraction from the inner turmoil. Calm yourself, Naruto, Kira warned, appearing beside him, concern etched on his face. You're losing control. This is what the villagers fear, a beast without restraint. Control. Naruto spat, his voice laced with anger. What do they know about control? They've tried to bind me my whole life, and now they'll pay for it. Kira narrowed his eyes, frustration boiling over. No, they won't. You don't want to become the monster they think you are. If you want to build a new world, you need to show them your strength, not unleash chaos. For a brief moment, Naruto felt a flicker of doubt. Was this truly the path he wanted? As much as he craved power, the memories of his past haunted him, reminding him of the bonds he had once held dear. I can't let them win, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't go back to being the weak, lolly kid who they all feared. Kira crossed his arms, his gaze piercing. But you also can become the very thing you sought to destroy. Power is nothing without purpose. You need to find that purpose, or you will lose yourself completely. That night, as he lay in his tent, Naruto felt a familiar sense of despair wash over him. The visions had returned, flooding his mind like an unstoppable tide. He found himself reliving the moment when he first realized his feelings for Sakura, how she had always been his anchor in the chaos of his world. The memory enveloped him, and he could see her standing on the bridge, tears in her eyes as she told him he was never alone. We're in this together, Naruto. No matter what happens, I'll always stand by you. Always, he whispered into the darkness, a fragile hope flickering within him. But that hope was drowned by the weight of regret. As the days turned into nights, Naruto found himself at a crossroads. The visions had become unbearable, intertwining with his waking thoughts, blurring the lines between reality and memory. He felt the conflict raging within him, a struggle between the monster he was becoming and the boy who once dreamed of being a hero. One fateful evening, he stood on the cliff overlooking Konoha, staring at the village that had both nurtured and rejected him. The lights twinkled like stars, and for a moment, he felt a sense of longing. He wanted to return, to reconnect with those who had once stood beside him, but the fear of rejection held him back. I can't go back, he murmured, clenching his fists. They'll never see me as anything but a monster. Yet, as he gazed at the village, he remembered the warmth of friendship and the bonds that had once united them. He thought of Sakura's laughter, Iruka's unwavering support, and Kakashi's guidance. In that moment, he made a choice. He would confront the past, not to seek forgiveness but to reclaim the pieces of himself that had been lost along the way. He didn't want to be defined by power alone. He wanted to be Naruto Uzumaki, the boy who never gave up on his dreams, regardless of how far he had strayed. As the moon rose higher in the sky, illuminating his path, Naruto took a deep breath and turned away from the village. He would face the darkness within himself, confront the memories that haunted him, and strive to redefine what it meant to be strong. With renewed determination, he returned to the Akatsuki camp, where Kira awaited his arrival. Where were you? Kira asked, suspicion lacing his tone. You've been gone too long. I was thinking, Naruto replied, his voice steady. It's time to change our approach. We can't just unleash chaos on Konoha. We need to show them that strength can coexist with understanding. Kira raised an eyebrow, skepticism evident in his expression. What do you mean? You're saying you want to talk? They won't listen. I know they won't listen easily, Naruto said, his voice unwavering. But I have to try. I need to face my past and find a way to bridge the gap between us. Power isn't everything, it's about the connections we make and the people we protect. For the first time, Kira hesitated, uncertainty flashing in his eyes. And what if they reject you again? Then I'll show them that I'm not just a monster, Naruto declared, determination fueling his words. I'll prove that I've changed, that I'm more than just a vessel for the Ten Tails. I'll fight for the bonds I once cherished. As the sun began to rise, casting a golden hue across the land, Naruto felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. The internal struggle was far from over, but he was ready to confront his demons, to reclaim the fragments of his identity that had been lost in the pursuit of power. With a newfound sense of purpose, he gathered his allies and shared his plan. They listened in silence, some skeptical, others intrigued by the idea of approaching Konoha with understanding rather than chaos. Are you sure about this? Kira asked, his brow furrowed with concern. I am, Naruto replied firmly. This is the only way to forge a future where strength is a force for good, not destruction. And with that, He set forth on a journey to confront the past, to reclaim his identity, and to fight for a future where he could be both powerful and connected, a god among men who would choose to stand for hope rather than chaos. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the hidden leaf village. The air was thick with anticipation, and an unsettling silence enveloped the familiar streets. It had been years since Sasuke Uchiha had left the village, driven by a desire for strength, a thirst for vengeance that twisted his heart into something unrecognizable. His absence had been felt deeply by Naruto, who, despite the turbulent paths they had taken, had always held on to the hope of Sasuke's return. Now, as the sky blazed with hues of orange and crimson, that hope was about to collide violently with the reality of what Sasuke had become. The two boys, once inseparable friends bonded by dreams of becoming stronger and protecting their loved ones, were on the precipice of a reckoning. Sasuke stood at the edge of the forest, the village sprawling out before him. His heart, once full of ambition and brotherly love, now pulsed with the cold rhythm of purpose and regret. The months spent training with Orochimaru had warped his ideals, infusing him with a darkness that he had believed would make him strong enough to surpass Naruto. He had shed the weight of his past, but in doing so, he had also abandoned the very essence of who he once was. His gaze settled on the Hokage monument, where Naruto's face smiled down upon him, frozen in a moment of triumph. That expression, a reminder of their shared dreams, twisted into a knot of anger and determination within him. Sasuke clenched his fists, feeling the power coursing through his veins, the mark of the curse seal glowing ominously. He had trained harder, pushed himself beyond the limits, yet deep down, a flicker of doubt lingered. Could he truly confront Naruto, the embodiment of their dreams, with the conviction he now held? As he strode into the village, the familiar sights and sounds rushed back to him, but they felt tainted. The laughter of children playing, the aromas wafting from ramen shops, the casual banter of friends, it was all a reminder of what he had sacrificed. He brushed aside the pangs of nostalgia and focused on his goal, to confront Naruto and show him that true strength lay in freedom from emotional ties. Meanwhile, Naruto was training on the outskirts of the village, pushing himself to the limit. His recent battles had tested him in ways he had never imagined, and he had embraced the dark powers within him, seeking to control the chaos rather than be controlled by it. The whisper of the Nine Tails echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked within. But he had resolved to use that power to protect his village and those he loved. When news of Sasuke's return reached him, a whirlwind of emotions surged through Naruto: joy, anger, fear, and an overwhelming sense of purpose. He had longed for this moment, hoping that Sasuke would come back and they could restore their friendship. But a deep-seated fear gripped him. What if Sasuke returned as a different person, consumed by hatred and ambition? Naruto felt a tension in the air as he raced toward the village center, where villagers were gathering, whispers spreading like wildfire. "He's back," they murmured. "Sasuke Uchiha has returned." As he neared the center of the village, he spotted him. Sasuke stood tall, a figure cloaked in darkness, his eyes sharp and calculating. The weight of his presence seemed to shift the very atmosphere around them. "Sasuke!" Naruto shouted, his voice cracking with emotion. "You're back. I knew you would come." Sasuke's expression remained cold, devoid of the warmth that had once defined their friendship. "You're still the same, Naruto," he replied, his voice steady but laced with disdain. "Chasing after bonds that only weaken you. You think friendship gives you strength? It's a delusion." Naruto's heart sank. "Sasuke, you don't understand. I've fought to protect my bonds. They are what make me stronger, not weaker." "Strength is all that matters," Sasuke countered, stepping closer, his eyes narrowing. "You've let your emotions cloud your judgment. That's why you'll never surpass me. I'm going to show you that there's freedom in cutting those ties. The only way to be truly strong is to embrace solitude." The villagers watched, their breaths held in anticipation as the two warriors faced each other. It was a confrontation not just of power but of ideologies. The clash of their beliefs would resonate far beyond this moment. "You think you can find freedom in isolation?" Naruto challenged, fists clenched at his sides. You're wrong, Sasuke. Bonds are what give us strength. They are what make us human. You can't just throw that away. Sasuke scoffed, a bitter smile curling at the corners of his lips. And what have your precious bonds done for you? They've held you back, made you weak. You're still playing the hero, thinking you can save everyone. But look where that has led you, fighting battles for others, losing yourself in the process. Naruto shook his head, anger flaring within him. You don't know what you're talking about. I've fought for my friends, for everyone in this village. I'm not losing myself, I'm finding out who I am. The tension crackled between them, the air thick with the unspoken weight of their history. Sasuke's heart was a tempest of conflicting emotions, torn between his desire for vengeance and the memories of the bonds he once cherished. Then let's end this, Sasuke said, his voice low and menacing. Let's see whose ideology is stronger. I'll prove to you that solitude is the path to true power. Fine. Naruto shot back, a fire igniting in his chest. I won't hold back, either. I'll show you that you can be strong without throwing away what matters. With that, the battle began. The ground trembled beneath their feet as they launched at each other, the force of their strikes sending shockwaves through the village. Naruto summoned the chakra of the nine tails, his form shifting into a powerful beast, while Sasuke channeled his curse seal, dark energy enveloping him as he unleashed his full strength. Their fists collided, creating an explosion of power that illuminated the twilight sky. Naruto's Rasengan met Sasuke's Chidori in a blinding flash, the shockwave sending debris flying in every direction. The villagers watched in awe and horror as the two titans fought, their friendship lost amid the chaos of battle. As the fight escalated, they exchanged blows, each one fueled by their beliefs. Naruto, driven by the bonds he had forged, fought fiercely, his heart aching for his friend to remember the warmth of their past. Sasuke, fueled by his desire for freedom, fought back with a cold determination, each strike a reminder of the path he had chosen. You think you can win with just your friends? Sasuke taunted, dodging Naruto's attack and countering with a swift kick that sent him sprawling. You'll only end up hurt. Naruto pushed himself up, defiance burning in his eyes. I'll take that risk. I won't abandon my friends just to chase power. You're better than this, Sasuke. Come back to us. For a moment, Sasuke faltered, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. The memories of their shared dreams of laughter, of camaraderie flashed through his mind like a flickering candle in the darkness. But he shook his head, the darkness pulling him back. You're too naive, Naruto. Bonds make you weak. You need to learn that. The battle raged on, each fighter pushing the other to their limits. Naruto's determination clashed with Sasuke's resolve, creating a storm of emotions that enveloped them. They were not just fighting for victory but for the very soul of their friendship. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with the shades of darkness, the two warriors found themselves locked in a final confrontation. Breathing heavily, they stood a few feet apart, their bodies battered and bruised, but their spirits unyielding. I won't give up on you, Sasuke. Naruto shouted, his voice echoing across the battlefield. I'll keep fighting until you see the truth. Sasuke, eyes blazing with intensity, replied, and I won't let you drag me back into that world. I am my own person now, free from the shackles of your delusions. Their eyes met, and in that moment, a whirlwind of emotions surged between them: pain, regret, anger, and an undeniable bond that still lingered beneath the surface. Sasuke's heart wavered. The conviction that had driven him to this moment began to crack. Was he truly free if he was merely running from the connections that had once defined him? Maybe you're right, he began, his voice barely a whisper. But before he could finish, Naruto surged forward, a surge of raw chakra enveloping him as he called upon a nine tails power. I won't let you fall into darkness, Sasuke. In that instant, the battle reached its climax. With one final clash, Naruto unleashed a devastating technique, merging his will with the chakra of his friends, a powerful Rasengan infused with the hope of their bonds. Sasuke countered with his most potent jutsu, the cursed energy swirling around him, an embodiment of his desire for strength. The collision was cataclysmic, sending shockwaves that shook the very foundations of the village. As the dust settled, the two warriors lay on the ground, panting and exhausted. The battlefield bore the scars of their conflict, a stark reminder of the ideological war that had raged between them. Naruto turned his head slowly, searching for Sasuke in the wreckage. "Sasuke," he croaked, his voice hoarse. Sasuke lay a few feet away, his body battered but alive. The curse seal flickered weakly on his skin, the darkness within him dimming. He looked up at the sky, the stars beginning to twinkle in the night. Why do you keep fighting for me?" "Because you're my friend," Naruto replied, tears streaming down his cheeks. "And I believe that there's still hope for you. I won't give up, no matter how dark things get." Sasuke's heart trembled, the weight of Naruto's words crashing over him like a wave. The truth he had buried deep within him clawed its way to the surface. Perhaps there was strength in bonds, a strength he had long denied. "I don't know if I can come back," Sasuke confessed, his voice breaking. "I have done terrible things." Naruto smiled through his tears. "We all have our demons, Sasuke. But we don't have to face them alone. I'm here for you, always." In that moment, the embers of their friendship ignited once more, flickering brightly against the encroaching darkness. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a warm glow on a devastated battlefield, Sasuke and Naruto began to rise. Their paths had diverged and converged in a whirlwind of pain and conflict, but now they stood at a crossroads. "We'll face this together," Naruto declared, determination shining in his eyes. "No more running. We'll fight for our bonds and our dreams together." Sasuke looked at him, a flicker of hope igniting within him. "Together," he echoed, feeling the weight of his past lift just a little. As they began to walk back toward the village, the sun rising behind them, the shadows of their battles began to fade, leaving only the promise of a new dawn, a dawn where friendship and rivalry would no longer be seen as opposing forces but as two sides of the same coin. In that moment, they understood. It wasn't just about the strength to fight, it was about the strength to choose each other, to rise together, and to forge a new path filled with hope, understanding, and the unbreakable bonds of friendship. The sun hung high above the Valley of the End, illuminating the colossal statues of Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, silent witnesses to the battles of the past and the eternal struggles between ideals. The serene beauty of the landscape belied the turmoil that had just unfolded within its depths. Naruto stood over Sasuke, his breath heavy and labored, the weight of victory resting heavily on his shoulders. The dust from their clash still swirled around them, a ghostly reminder of the intensity of their fight. Sasuke lay on the ground, bloodied and battered, his eyes reflecting the final flickers of determination and defiance. "I never wanted it to end like this," Naruto murmured, his voice breaking. He took a step back, his mind racing as the echoes of their confrontation replayed in his thoughts. I thought if I defeated you, everything would change. That we could go back to how things were." Sasuke coughed, the sound harsh and raw. "You've won, Naruto," he rasped, struggling to push himself up. "But what have you truly gained?" Naruto's heart twisted painfully at the sight of his friend, once so strong and resolute, now crumbled before him. "I've gained the strength to protect my friends. I've become Hokage. I've done everything I set out to do. But at what cost?" Sasuke shot back, his voice dripping with disdain. "You think power is enough? You've achieved your dreams, but look where it has led you. Alone, with no one to understand you." Naruto's heart sank as Sasuke's words cut through him like a blade. Alone. The word echoed in his mind, reverberating with haunting familiarity. He had always fought to protect his bonds, to ensure that he was never alone again, but now, in this moment of triumph, he felt a bitter sting of emptiness creeping in. As the realization dawned on him, the valleys seemed to darken, the statues of their ancestors casting long shadows over the two warriors. Naruto turned his gaze away from Sasuke, looking out over the vast landscape that stretched before them. The village he had fought so hard to protect, the bonds he cherished, and the dreams they had once shared felt like fleeting phantoms, slitting through his fingers. Why do I feel like this? Naruto murmured, his voice trembling as he turned back to face Sasuke. I thought winning would bring me peace, but all I feel is this emptiness. Sasuke's expression softened for a fleeting moment, a flicker of the bond they once shared sparking to life. Because you've achieved everything, but you've forgotten what truly matters, Naruto. Power alone will not save you. It will only leave you isolated and hollow. The words struck him hard, resonating with a truth he had avoided for so long. He had sacrificed so much for strength, for recognition, for the title of Hokage. But in doing so, had he lost sight of the very purpose behind that strength? Had he become the very thing he sought to protect others from, a lowly figure burdened by the weight of power? Sasuke lay back on the ground, his eyes drifting shut as if surrendering to the truth of his own words. You've won the battle, but the war within you is just beginning, he murmured, barely audible. You'll need to find your purpose again, Naruto. And the journey, it's the hardest fight of all. As Sasuke's voice faded into silence, a profound stillness settled over the valley. Naruto knelt beside his friend, the enormity of the moment crashing down on him. The victory he had longed for felt more like a shackle than a celebration. He had won, yes, but at what cost? The memories of their shared childhood, their dreams of the future, and the promises they had made felt like distant echoes, lost in the wind. The sun began its descent, casting long shadows that mirrored the darkness within him. Each ray of light seemed to mock his victory, reminding him that triumph without purpose was a hollow victory indeed. Sasuke's final words echoed in his mind, haunting him like a specter refusing to fade away. What do I do now? Naruto whispered, more to himself than to Sasuke. The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily upon him, suffocating in its intensity. He had fought so hard to become the strongest, to be acknowledged, yet here he was, feeling lost and unanchored. In that moment, the valley transformed into a labyrinth of confusion. Memories of their battles together, their laughter, the moments they had shared flooded back, reminders of the bonds he had forged with his friends and the strength they had drawn from each other. But the shadow of defeat loomed large, tainting those memories with a sense of loss. Naruto stood up, his fists trembling at his sides, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. He had achieved everything he had ever wanted, but the bitterness of this victory gnawed at him. It was not just about defeating Sasuke, it was about the friendship they had once cherished. He felt like a king on a throne of ash, surrounded by the ruins of what had once been. Why did it have to come to this? He cried out, his voice cracking with anguish. Why couldn't we find a way to understand each other? I thought we could face this together. The wind rustled through the valley, carrying with it the whispers of the past, echoing the laughter of children, the camaraderie of comrades, and the unwavering spirit of bonds that had once united them. But all that remained now was a chasm between them, a rift forged by their divergent paths. Sasuke stirred slightly, his eyes opening just a fraction. You have to choose, Naruto. Choose your bonds over power. If you let power define you, you'll end up just like me, lost and alone. The haunting weight of those words gripped Naruto's heart. He had always feared being alone, yet here he stood, alone in victory, haunted by the ghost of choices made. The thrill of power felt cold and distant, a fleeting mirage in the desert of his soul. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky transformed into a canvas of oranges and purples, painting a bittersweet picture of endings and new beginnings. Naruto turned to look at the statues of the Hokage, their gazes steady and resolute. He felt a stirring within him, a flicker of hope igniting in the depths of despair. I won't let this defeat me, he declared, his voice firm and resolute. I will find a way to honor our dreams and our bonds. I won't allow power to consume me. Sasuke's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of admiration and disbelief crossing his face. You really believe you can do that? Yes. Naruto replied, the fire in his heart rekindling. I believe in the bonds I've forged with my friends. They are what make me strong, not this power. Sasuke's expression softened, a ghost of a smile flitting across his lips. Then maybe there is hope for you after all. Just remember, the path you choose is filled with challenges. You will have to confront your own darkness. I know, Naruto replied, determination fueling his resolve. But I won't face it alone. I'll fight for our bonds, for the future we once dreamed of. With those words, a wave of clarity washed over him. He had been so focused on winning that he had overlooked the very essence of what had driven him all along, the desire to connect, to understand, and to protect the ones he loved. As night descended upon a valley, the stars began to twinkle overhead, each one a reminder of the dreams they had shared. The world felt vast and overwhelming, but Naruto felt a renewed sense of purpose blossoming within him. Let's get you back to the village, he said, kneeling beside Sasuke, who was still struggling to rise. We'll figure this out together. You're not alone anymore. Sasuke looked at him, a mixture of surprise and gratitude in his eyes. You really mean that? Of course, Naruto replied, his smile warm and genuine. We've fought too hard for this friendship to let it slip away. We'll make things right. I promise. With a grunt of effort, Sasuke pushed himself up, leaning against Naruto for support. Together, they began the journey back to the village, each step heavy with the weight of their past but lightened by the promise of a shared future. As they walked, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger battle, a battle not just against external forces but against the shadows that lurked within their hearts. I know it won't be easy, Sasuke murmured, his voice low and reflective. But if we can face it together, maybe we can find a way to bridge the gap between our ideals. Yes, Naruto replied, determination shining in his eyes. We will. Together. As they exited the valley, the night sky enveloped them, the stars their only companions on this path of uncertainty. Each step was a reminder of their struggles, their victories, and the unbreakable bond that had formed amidst the chaos. In the quiet of the night, Naruto found solace in the realization that true strength did not lie in the power he wielded but in the bonds he cherished. He could feel the weight of Sasuke's presence beside him, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there was always a flicker of light waiting to be embraced. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but Naruto was no longer afraid. With Sasuke at his side, he felt emboldened, ready to face whatever trials awaited them. Together, they would carve a new path, one filled with hope, understanding, and the unyielding strength of their friendship. And as they walked toward the dawn, Naruto felt his sense of purpose returning to his heart, a purpose rooted not in power but in the bonds that defined them. No longer a lowly figure on a throne of ash, he was a warrior forged in the fires of friendship, ready to fight for the future they had once dreamed of. Together, they would face the darkness and emerge into the light, their souls intertwined in an unbreakable bond. For in the end, it was not the strength to conquer that defined them but the courage to embrace their humanity, flaws and all. The world had changed, reshaped under the relentless ambition of one man. From the ashes of the old shinobi system, Naruto Uzumaki had risen to dominate, a figure cloaked in power and ambition. No longer merely the Hokage of Konoha, he had become a sovereign of the new world, a god among ruins, a title he had never sought but had come to embody. As he stood at the pinnacle of the tower of the Hokage, the winds whipping around him, Naruto surveyed the vast landscape stretching before him. The villages that once symbolized unity now lay fragmented, their structures crumbling as he dismantled the old ways. The shinobi system had been reformed, its traditions uprooted in favor of a new order, one he believed would bring peace and strength. Yet, despite his success, a hollow ache gnawed at his heart. The grandeur of his achievements felt empty, the weight of his throne suffocating. He looked down at the streets of Konoha, where the citizens milled about, unaware of the storm brewing within their leader. The very people he had fought to protect now felt like specters, their faces blurred in the fog of his memory. As the sun set, casting an orange hue across the village, Naruto was alone in his office, the vast chamber echoing with silence. The walls that had once been adorned with photographs of his friends now felt sterile, devoid of warmth. The laughter that once filled the room had faded, replaced by the quiet hum of distant conversations he could no longer join. Naruto sank into his chair, its leather creaking beneath his weight. He looked at the desk littered with documents and reports. Paperwork that had once excited him as a means to enact change now felt like shackles binding him to a reality he no longer recognized. Each stroke of the pen felt heavy, as if writing his name was a betrayal of the boy he had once been. "Is this what I wanted?" he whispered to the empty room, the question echoing back at him like a taunt. Memories of his childhood flooded his mind, moments of joy, laughter, and the companionship he had taken for granted. The bonds he had fought for had unraveled in his quest for power, leaving him with nothing but ghosts of what had been. Images of his friends appeared before him: Sasuke's defiant smile, Sakura's unwavering support, and the easy camaraderie of his team during their missions. They had been his strength, his family. But in his pursuit of a world reshaped by his ideals, he had sacrificed those very connections. Naruto rose abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor as he paced the room. With each step, the walls closed in, pressing against him as if to remind him of his solitude. He had become a god, yes, but at the cost of his humanity. He had once believed that through power, he could protect those he loved, that he could create a world free of conflict. But now he stood at the pinnacle of that power, surrounded by ruins of his own making, both the physical and emotional remnants of his choices. The old shinobi system may have been flawed, but it had been built on bonds and friendships, on the understanding that strength came from unity. Now, he was alone, ruling a world that had lost its essence. The cries for help that once fueled his passion were now drowned out by the relentless march of progress he had set in motion. He had severed the ties that bound him to his friends in the name of a greater good, yet he found himself bereft of purpose. As he stared out the window, the horizon darkening with the approach of night, visions of his younger self flooded his mind. The boy who had dreamed of becoming Hokage not for power, but to be acknowledged, to find his place in the world. That boy had fought with a heart full of hope, surrounded by friends who believed in him. "Where did I go wrong?" Naruto murmured, his voice heavy with regret. "Did I really think I could change the world by myself?" In his mind, he could hear Sasuke's words echoing warnings of the cost of power and the danger of isolation. He had dismissed them as the ramblings of a rival consumed by darkness, yet they now felt prophetic. He had become what he had fought against, a ruler wielding power without connection, a lowly god presiding over a kingdom of ashes. "Is this victory?" he asked, the emptiness in his heart mirroring the desolation outside. "Or is it just a cruel reminder of what I've lost?" Suddenly, the door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. It was Shikamaru, his face solemn. "Naruto," he began, hesitating as if choosing his words carefully. "There's been talk among the village leaders. They are concerned about the direction we're heading." Naruto turned to face him, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. "What do you mean?" "People feel disconnected from you," Shikamaru replied, his brow furrowing. "You've made changes, but they are scared. They don't understand your vision, and they miss the way things used to be. It's like you're up there, ruling from a distance, and they don't know how to reach you anymore." Naruto felt a pang of guilt pierce through him. "But I'm doing this for them. For a better future." "Maybe," Shikamaru said, his tone steady. "But a better future means nothing if they feel abandoned in the process. You're isolating yourself, and they don't know how to connect with the person you've become. You've changed the system, but you've forgotten the people." Naruto's heart sank as Shikamaru's words resonated within him. He had been so focused on reshaping the world that he had failed to recognize the very foundation upon which had stood his friends, his village, and the connections that gave his life meaning. "I didn't mean to," he started, but the words felt hollow. He had pushed everyone away in his quest for control and power, believing that strength would bring them together. Yet, he stood alone on his hollow throne, surrounded by walls of his own making. Shikamaru stepped closer, his expression earnest. "You need to reconnect, Naruto. You have to show them that you're still the same person, that you still care. You've got to find a way to bring everyone back together." The flicker of hope ignited within Naruto, a small flame amidst the encroaching darkness. "But how?" he asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "How do I undo what I've done, Start by listening, Shikamaru replied. Rebuild those connections. Reach out to your friends. Let them remind you of who you were. You need to remember why you started this journey in the first place. Naruto nodded slowly, a sense of determination coursing through him. Shikamaru was right. He needed to reconnect, to bridge the gap he had created. But the task felt daunting. How could he face the very people he had sacrificed in his pursuit of power? Will they even want to see me? Naruto questioned, doubt creeping into his mind. Will they forgive me for what I've done? Forgiveness comes with understanding, Shikamaru said firmly. You will need to show them that you are willing to change, too. They need to see that you are still fighting for them, not just for your ideals. With newfound resolve, Naruto straightened his posture, the weight of the crown feeling slightly lighter. He would not let fear of the past hold him back any longer. He would confront the ghosts that haunted him and face the consequences of his actions. I'll do it, he declared, a fire igniting in his chest. I'll reach out to them. I'll bring everyone back together, no matter what it takes. Shikamaru's lips curled into a small smile, relief flooding his features. That's the spirit. Start with Sakura and the others. They've been worried about you. They'll help you find your way back. Right, Naruto said, determination settling in his bones. He felt the warmth of hope returning, kindling the embers of purpose that had long been extinguished. He would rise from the ashes of his hollow victory, not as a ruler above his people, but as a leader among them. As he turned to leave, a wave of nostalgia washed over him, memories of simpler times, of bonds forged through trials and laughter, reminded him of what he had truly fought for. He had sought power, but it was the connections that brought light to his life. The night air felt cool against his skin as Naruto stepped out of the tower of the Hokage. He took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the village he loved, a village filled with memories and people who had once been his family. He walked through the streets, his heart racing with anticipation and trepidation. The moon hung high in the sky, casting silvery light on the faces of the villagers. As he passed, he caught glimpses of their expressions: curiosity, fear, and a flicker of longing. They looked at him as though he were a specter, a distant figure who had become a stranger in their midst. He could feel the weight of their gazes, the unspoken questions that lingered in the air. Where was their Hokage? What had become of the boy who had once dreamed of bringing them together? With every step, he could hear the whispers of his past, echoes of laughter and friendship that felt like a distant memory. He approached Sakura's clinic, the place where they had shared countless moments, from laughter to tears. The familiar warmth of the building felt like a beacon of hope amidst the cold reality he had created. He pushed open the door, the soft chime of the bell announcing his arrival. Inside, the clinic was filled with the scent of herbs and the soft sound of Sakura's voice as she tended to a patient. Just a moment, she called out, her tone cheerful, but Naruto could sense an underlying tension. He waited, heart pounding in his chest as he prepared for the reunion he had long avoided. Sakura emerged from the back, her eyes widening as she spotted him. Naruto, she breathed, surprise and concern etched across her face. Is that really you? Hey, Sakura, he replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask. She approached cautiously, searching his face for answers. What's happened to you? You've changed. I know, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I've been so focused on power and change that I lost sight of what really matters. I've isolated myself, and I'm sorry. The silence hung heavily between them, filled with unspoken words and lingering hurt. You've pushed everyone away, Sakura said, her voice soft but firm. We've all been worried about you, Naruto. You're not the same person anymore. Naruto's heart ached at her words, the truth cutting deep. I thought I could create a better world, he confessed, but I ended up alone, ruling over a broken dream. Sakura studied him, her expression softening. We're still here for you, Naruto. You don't have to face this alone. Just come back to us. I want to, he replied earnestly. I want to rebuild those connections, to bring everyone together again. I need your help." A flicker of hope ignited in her eyes, and she stepped closer, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Then let's start right now. We can talk to the others, bring everyone back together. You're still our friend, and we're not giving up on you." With Sakura by his side, Naruto felt a surge of hope. They left the clinic together, the air crackling with anticipation as they ventured into the night. It was time to confront the past, to seek forgiveness, and to rebuild the bonds he had shattered in his quest for power. They walked through the streets, seeking out familiar faces, friends who had fought alongside him, who had believed in him when he had doubted himself. One by one, he reached out, listening to their concerns, acknowledging their feelings, and reaffirming the bonds that had once held them together. Each reunion was a step toward healing, a chance to mend the fractures that had formed in the wake of his ambition. Naruto poured his heart out, sharing his struggles and regrets, and each conversation brought him closer to the person he had once been: a friend, a teammate, a brother. As the dawn approached, casting a warm glow over the village, Naruto felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer the hollow god presiding over a kingdom of ruins. He was a leader forged in the fires of friendship, ready to face the challenges ahead with a united front. Together, they would rebuild, not just a new system, but a new foundation based on trust, connection, and understanding. Naruto knew it would be a long road, filled with obstacles and trials, but he was no longer afraid. He had the strength of his friends by his side, and together, they would forge a brighter future, one rooted in the bonds that had once defined them. As the sun rose higher in the sky, illuminating the village in golden light, Naruto stood among his friends, feeling the warmth of their presence surrounding him. He smiled, knowing that this time, he would not walk alone. For in the end, it was not power that defined him but the love and bonds he shared with those who mattered most. Together, they would rise from the ashes of the past, stronger than ever, ready to face whatever lay ahead. And with that thought, Naruto took his first step toward redemption, not as a god among ruins, but as a man who had finally found his way home. The Valley of the End lay before Naruto, a sacred ground where the echoes of battles long fought lingered like whispers in the wind. The monumental statues of Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha towered over him, guardians of a history steeped in conflict and ideals. He stood at the edge of the water, its surface still and reflective, a mirror to his turbulent soul. This place, once a battlefield that had seen the clash of titans, now felt like his sanctuary for contemplation, a stark contrast to the chaos he had brought upon the world. The valley held a sacred significance, a place where dreams and nightmares converged, and as he stood there, he felt the weight of his journey pressing down on him like a shroud. Naruto closed his eyes, allowing the memories to wash over him. He recalled the battles he had fought, the friends he had made, and the promises he had sworn to keep. He remembered the dreams of a better world, a world where no one would suffer the way he had suffered as a child. Yet, those dreams had twisted into a relentless pursuit of power, a path that had left him isolated, haunted by the ghosts of his past. In this valley, he had once fought against Sasuke, the pain of the rivalry echoing through time. Their battle had been more than just a clash of strength, it had been a philosophical divide, freedom through strength versus the bonds that connected them. Sasuke had warned him then, and now, standing alone in a valley, those words resonated deeply within him. Had he betrayed not only his friends but also the very essence of who he was? The boy who had fought so hard for acceptance had lost sight of his original self. He had carved the path of destruction to create a world he believed would be better, but in doing so, he had alienated the very people he had wanted to protect. As he stood at the water's edge, a riddle disturbed the surface, and a figure emerged from the depths, a specter of his younger self, a haunting reflection that stared back at him with wide, innocent eyes. The boy wore the orange jumpsuit that had once been his armor, a symbol of his undying spirit and determination. "Why did you abandon us?" the specter asked, voice echoing like a soft breeze. The question pierced through the silence, a painful reminder of the bonds he had severed. Naruto swallowed hard, guilt flooding his heart. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I could create a world where everyone would be safe. But at what cost? The younger version of himself pressed, the innocence in his eyes replaced by an understanding that cut deep. You pushed everyone away. You sacrificed our friends, our family, for a dream that was never yours alone. You became what you swore to fight against. Naruto's heart ached at the truth of those words. He had wanted to be the hero, the savior, but he had become a ruler, a tyrant in the name of peace. The very ideals that had driven him to become Hokage had been lost in the pursuit of power. Do you regret it? The specter continued, tilting its head as if searching for an answer that was hidden deep within Naruto's soul. Was it worth it? Naruto opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. He thought of his friends, their faces filled with concern, love, and the joy of shared moments. He thought of Sakura's unwavering support, of Shikamaru's steady wisdom, and of Sasuke, who had once been both rival and brother. They had believed in him, and he had let them down. I wanted to be strong, he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. But I didn't understand what that really meant. Strength isn't just power, it's about the bonds we create. And I lost sight of that. The specter nodded slowly, a pained expression crossing its face. You've changed the world, but you've also lost yourself. What will you do now? Naruto felt the weight of his choices heavy on his shoulders. He had achieved everything he had set out to accomplish, yet the victory felt empty. I want to make amends, he replied, desperation creeping into his voice. I want to find a way to rebuild the bonds I've broken. Will they accept you? The specter asked, a hint of skepticism lacing its tone. Will you be able to forgive yourself? The question hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating and oppressive. Naruto closed his eyes again, allowing the memories to flood back, laughter shared, tears shed, and the warmth of friendships that had once been his anchor. He had fought for a better world, yet he had sacrificed the very foundation that made life worth living. As he stood there, the reflection of his younger self shimmered, blurring with the water's surface, merging past and present. The valley had been a place of battle, but now it was a place of reflection, a mirror showing him the stark reality of his choices. Maybe it's too late, he murmured, the weight of despair creeping into his voice. Maybe I can't go back. Maybe I'm just a shadow of what I was. But as he said those words, he felt a flicker of something within him, a spark of hope. He had faced his past, acknowledged his mistakes, and understood the cost of his ambition. He had not become a monster, he had simply lost his way. Perhaps it's not too late, he replied softly, a newfound determination igniting within him. Maybe the journey forward is just as important as the journey that brought me here. I can still fight for those bonds, for the people who matter. I can strive to reconnect, to heal, and to remember what it means to truly be strong. With that thought, he took a step back from the water's edge, feeling the ground solid beneath his feet. The specter of his younger self smiled faintly, an understanding passing between them. Find your way back, Naruto, the specter said, its form beginning to dissolve into the mist. Remember the bonds you cherish. They will guide you home. As the specter faded, Naruto opened his eyes once more, staring into the stillness of the water. The valley was silent, yet he felt a sense of clarity settling over him. The journey had been fraught with pain and sacrifice, but it had also led him to a deeper understanding of himself and the people he cared about. He had walked a path lined with regret and isolation, but now he stood at a crossroads, one that would lead him back to the connections he had lost. He could choose to rebuild, to confront the ghosts of his past and seek forgiveness, not just from others but from himself. Was it worth it? He mused aloud, the question lingering in the air like a distant memory. The answer remained elusive, dancing just beyond his reach. He had gained power and achieved his goals, yet he had sacrificed so much along the way. Maybe it's not about the worth of the journey, he concluded, feeling the weight of his choices pressing down on him. Maybe it's about how I choose to move forward from here? With one last glance at the valley of the end, he turned away, ready to embrace the uncertainty of the future. The sun was beginning to rise, casting golden rays across the landscape, illuminating a path that lay ahead. He would carry the weight of his choices with him, a reminder of the lessons learned. But he would no longer let it define him. Instead, he would strive to create a new narrative, one rooted in the bonds that had always been his true strength. As he walked away from the valley, the sun rising higher in the sky, Naruto felt the warmth of a new beginning wrapping around him. He was no longer a god among ruins, he was a man renewed, ready to face the challenges that awaited him. In his heart, he carried the echoes of his past, the lessons learned from the specter of his younger self. He would fight for his friends, for the bonds that defined him, and for a world where strength was measured not in power but in connection. With each step, he felt a sense of purpose returning, a clarity that had been obscured by ambition. He would reconnect with his friends, listen to their fears, and build a future together, a future filled with hope, understanding, and the unyielding strength of their shared bonds. And as he walked toward the dawn, Naruto embraced the ambiguity of his journey, knowing that while the path may be uncertain, it was also filled with potential, a chance to create a new legacy, one that honored both his past and the connections that would guide him home. With the sun shining brightly above, he stepped forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that in the end, it was the bonds of friendship that would light his way.